Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
A good Monday, everybody. This is the Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SB Live. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Hennings producing today's show. You out there, good Monday. It's, man, what a weekend, right? Phils lose last night, but they get 2 out of 3 against what was a pretty hot Cardinals team. We'll dive into the game from last night. You had an injury in the game last night. A pretty substantial story there, potentially. The big story a lot of people going after today, Taijuan Walker. It feels like anytime he pitches, he has become kind of the bane of everyone's existence. So I guess the question with Walker, and we can get into this, is Taijuan Walker, is this a substantial conversation, or is this just a team that's 41-19 and we just don't have enough things to complain about? So Walker is being put in the lexicon of, I got to complain about something, so it's going to be Taijuan Walker on the pitching staff, or is it warranted? Is it valid to say, hey, this is becoming something big picture problem? We could dive into that. I have some thoughts on it as well. And by the way, I am by no means a Taijuan Walker fan at all. If you got rid of him from the rotation, I got no problems with it. But here's the problem that the Phillies see. They're writing a big check to Taijuan Walker, a massive check to Taijuan Walker. And as they see it, Walker goes out and eats up these innings in June and July. And you know what that means? That's one pitcher that they don't have to put a lot of wear and tear on their arm. So I think Walker, as long as he kind of plows his way through 5 innings for you, they're looking at that and saying, that's 5 innings that someone else doesn't have to be worn out. I know you don't like that answer, but I think we're going a little overboard on Taijuan Walker, and I'll explain in a little bit. But for the most part, Walker is just kind of doing what they ask him to do. Give us 5 innings. If you get any further, great. Keep us in the game. They were in the game. It's not like, listen, you're 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position. They're not going to look at the number 5 starter and say, how dare you give up 4 runs in the game? Like, hey, we're the Phillies. We're 41-19, 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position. The number 5 starter kind of kept. Now, you might have higher standards for your 5th starter. That's fine. But I think the Phillies are look at it and say, look, it's June. We're 7 games up in the division. They might be further up. Is it 7 or 7.5 on the Braves right now? Let me get a quick look at that. They are 6.5 up on the Braves. So I think the Phillies are kind of looking at it from this angle. We're 6.5 games up. Our 5th starter gives up 4 runs. We could complain and say, you're down in that game. The Phillies might say, look, those are 5 innings in the middle of June that we didn't have to ask somebody else to pitch. Now, I know people have said, isn't there anybody else? And the answer to that is kinda, maybe. I don't know that the other guy is going to give you much more than the 5 innings that Taijuan Walker gave you last night. I don't care for Walker. I don't need to see Walker ever pitch again. To me, he's Jake Cave. I never need to see you again. But his problem, different from Cave's, is Cave is just a journeyman guy making no money. Walker's making substantial money. So they've got to get something out of him. Walker averages, I think if I did the math right, Josh, you could check me on this. I think he averages like 5 2/3 a start, something like that. To put it in perspective, nobody's complaining about Christopher Sanchez, and he gives you like 5.4 innings a start. So they're both not going deep enough into games. The difference is Sanchez gives up less runs. I mean, his ERA is in the 2s. Walker's is in the 5s. I think Walker is not – he's not good. That's not – But I'm not here just to pile on. I'm trying to solve the problem or see if there is a problem. Is Walker that much of a problem? Did you not have a shot to win the game last night? Well, why am I 4 runs down? Your fifth starter's pitching. I mean, how many fifth starters in the league are Cy Young entries? Not many. If any, none. Zero. None. So I think we complain just to complain a lot. Walker is a viable guy to complain about. I don't know that it's going to change. And quite frankly, should it change? Everybody's talking about Turnbull. Why not Turnbull? I look deeper into Turnbull's, history. Last year, he threw 50 innings. He threw 50 innings last year. He threw 56 the year before that. In 2022, he didn't throw at all. He missed the whole season. He was hurt. So you're talking about a guy who's only thrown in 2 years 100 innings in Spencer Turnbull. Now, I don't think that precludes him from at some point you have to say, hey, you got to pitch more than 50 innings. I'm all on board on that. But I think the Phillies are saying, do I really need him to pitch 5 innings on Sunday night baseball in June? Maybe we kind of ease him in. You know how many innings Turnbull's pitched already this year? 44. So he's pitched 6 fewer innings than he's through all of last year, Spencer Turnbull. So I kind of understand this. The Phillies are kind of, I don't want to say stuck between a rock and a hard place here, but I think the Phillies are saying, look, if this guy can give us 5 to 6 innings every time he goes out there in June and July, once August comes around, maybe we pull the plug on him and we go to Spencer Turnbull. The question I would have with that is, if that's your philosophy, is how do you keep him, Spencer, how do you keep him sharp? How do you keep him active? How do you keep him as successful as he was in the 6 starts that he made? This guy, ERA 2.64, whip 0.97. If you're just saying, hey, turn over the baseball card and look at the bubblegum wrapper here, Walker's not on the mound at all. His whip stinks. His ERA's worse. Actually, his whip is probably 159 whip is not very good. 5.73 ERA is not good at all. So this isn't look, we all know Walker stinks. We also have to understand the Phillies have already told us what they think of Walker. They're not pitching him in a playoff game. They're not going to put Taijuan Walker on the mound in a playoff game. So with that, I would say I feel pretty comfortable the Phillies are, and I don't want to say it in a way that makes it sound derogatory, but they're just using Walker. He's being used is essentially it. We're paying you a lot of money, so we're going to use you. And if you end up getting hurt, so be it. But I think the Phillies are cognizant of Turnbull's work rate has been very low the last couple of years due to injury issues. We don't want to overwork him in games in June and July when we have a 6.5 game lead in the division. Like, it's not a pressing situation that the number 5 starter is Cy Young. I thought Walker stunk last night, but in the end, you still had a shot to win the game. I mean, for God's sakes, it went to extra innings. Now you would say, well, why be like that? I don't know. You're anticipating that Spencer Turnbull is going to come in and be Cy Young every time he pitches, which he's been better than Walker. I get it, but quite frankly, I think we're making a bigger deal out of the Walker thing. He has pitched in 7 games. He actually has 3 wins. He has 2 quality starts. I think the Phillies are, listen, in a perfect world, yes, you pull them and you go to the better player. In the real world, the more expensive guy is going to get those innings. And quite frankly, why stress somebody else out if I can get this guy to throw in those 5 innings? So that's kind of how I see this Taijuan Walker thing. I don't think it's like, I saw somebody saying, hey, a team that has World Series aspirations doesn't have this guy. Yeah, he's not going to pitch in the playoffs. So he might pitch in July. He might pitch in June. but he's not going to be anywhere near a playoff game. What do you got?
So your question about the innings pitched per start. So in the 38 starts for the Phillies in his Phillies career, Taijuan Walker is averaging 5 2/3 innings.
In his career.
In his Phillies career.
Gotcha.
In the 33 starts for Christopher Sanchez with the Phillies, because remember he's had bullpen games, he had the bullpen games, Sanchez is averaging 5 1/3 innings. So they're literally, it's a third of an inning difference.
Yeah, well, what about
Sanchez
this particular year?
This particular year for Sanchez?
For both guys. Because I think, obviously Sanchez is a starter from Jump Street for the first time in his career. He has not been a regular part of the rotation. Obviously, Walker last year was really good in the month of June. He was not good the rest of the time. But I think this year is what people are looking at and saying, look, Walker needs to go. And his salary precludes you from getting rid of him. Nobody wants Taijuan Walker, so you got a problem there. Secondly, I think one of the problems with Walker is the velocity's not there. He's throwing 88 miles an hour. I mean, and every ball off the bat is like 105, off the bat. So he's getting hit, and he's getting hit hard. And he's putting too many guys on base. He's got 15 walks. Taijuan Walker has more walks in 37 innings than Spencer Turnbull has in 44 innings. He has more walks in 37 innings than Ranger Suarez does in 74 innings. So you got a problem there that he's putting guys on, and then the ball's getting hit hard off of him. We get it. Like, I don't think nobody has to convince me that he's not good. I'm just telling you, I'm imagining this is the conversation inside the Phillies, front office is, hey, we're paying this guy a lot of money. It's June. We're up 6.5 games. Can we just get him to throw 5 to 6 innings for us? And that's why I think he gets left out there a little longer sometimes. It's, hey, if we can just get one more inning out of him, that keeps our bullpen fresh. And that, that's to me where this is.
So in the 7 starts Walker has pitched this year, he's averaging 5 1/3 innings. So it's one out less than his career at the Phillies, Walker.
Okay.
Sanchez is averaging an out more. In 11 starts, he is 5 2/3 innings.
Yeah, right. Overall, Sanchez is getting one more out this year than Walker is.
By comparison, if you went into Turnbull, in Turnbull's 6 starts with the Phillies this year, he's averaging 5 2/3 innings.
So Turnbull is only getting one more out than Walker is.
Correct.
All right. So there you go. I mean, to me, this is obvious. They look at Walker as eat the innings and save somebody else's arm.
By the way, if anyone's wondering, the 66 career starts for Spencer Turnbull, he is averaging 5 innings a start.
Yeah, well, Turnbull's career has not been good. He has not been a good pitcher. This has kind of been a outlier for him. His last full season of pitching, I'm going off memory here, but his last full season, he threw 146 innings in Detroit. He went 3-17 with an ERA in the mid 4s. So, Spencer Turnbull has not been great in his one full year of pitching. Now, one of the reasons that he's only thrown 50 innings and 56 innings is he's had some injury issues. And I think the Phillies are cognizant of that, of wanting to kind of say, you know what, we have a lead in the division. We can get by with Walker throwing 5 innings for us. Now, I think you're going to see that as the season goes on. I think you'll see that cut into a little bit more. Like, if he's not pitching well, I think the Phillies will have a quicker hook with him. But I think in these early, May, June games, they're like, you know what? If we could sneak one more inning out of him, then let's try to do it.
Yeah, Walker is not here to pitch Game 3 of the postseason. He's here to fulfill a role for the regular season. Like yesterday, Mike, I was watching earlier in the day. It was the Rays and the Orioles Sunday afternoon. And one of the comments they made on the television broadcast, I was watching the Orioles version of the broadcast, they were talking about the concept of, hey, we don't need our guy to go out there and be elite, the 4th or 5th star. We don't need him to be elite. We need him to eat up 5, 6, 7 innings. They were talking about how the Orioles bullpen gets taxed sometimes because their 4th and 5th starters can't go 5 innings.
Yeah, that's the thing. Last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Taijuan Walker did not throw one pitch in the playoffs.
No.
Not one. I think he was on the roster, which you could even question.
He was on the roster,
You can question why he was even on the roster, but he did not throw one pitch in the playoffs. So precedent says the Phillies are not going to pitch him in the playoffs. So I think, to me, this is more Phillies fans needing something to complain about while being correct. I'm not saying anybody's wrong. Turnbull has been considerably better than Walker. My message to you is the Phillies are saying, these innings in June and July, I don't need to tax Spencer Turnbull, a guy who doesn't have a lot of innings, who's been injured. I don't need him pitching those innings right now when I can basically get those innings out of this guy. And I think they would say he gave up 4 runs in 5 innings. We were 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position. This is not a Walker problem tonight. We probably could have had more. We went to extra innings. We had a chance to win this game, and we didn't. We got 5 innings out of this guy.
Right. You didn't lose the game because of Taijuan Walker necessarily.
609-403-0973. Chris at Mike Gill Show tweets, it's clear they're limiting Turnbull's inning rightfully, but there has to be a better option than Walker. Maybe there is. I don't know of one. Here's the problem, Chris. They're paying Walker how much? $20 million a year?
$75 million over 4 years. Let me pull it up.
16, 17, 18 million, something to that effect. So you are paying him a ton of money. That factors in here. Mike at EHT says, Mike, I'd rather Turnbull than Walker in the 5 spot, but I don't think that's the Phillies' biggest issue. They keep losing these games where it's tied late in the game or extra innings because they don't have a single player capable of getting a bunt down. It's ridiculous. I can't remember the last time a guy tried sacrifice bunt and got it down. Actually happened last night. It was, well, I don't know that you can count Rojas as a sacrifice bunt.
You don't count that?
Well, I mean, Stubbs was on first, and he did bunt, so technically I guess he sacrificed him, but he beat it out. I mean, he kind of bunted. He
bunted for a base hit.
Bunted for a base hit, but there was a runner on first base.
Right.
So they did. I think they bunted back-to-back, didn't they?
I thought they did. By the way, Walker is averaging $18 million a year.
$18 million. Okay, yeah, he's getting paid a lot of money to say
$20 million, $18 million. It's still a lot of money.
Yeah. To say that you're going to not pitch him at all is unrealistic. So I think if we just put it into terms of, hey, I'm going to be frustrated once a week, are we okay with that? I don't know. We'll talk to Mike McGarry about it. Also, Red October Phillies, Bob Wankel. Are there other options? Hey, I'm open to them. Because I don't think the Phillies want to throw Spencer Turnbull in these starts. I don't think they're ready to kind of say, we're going to turn this over to you. I wouldn't be surprised, like after the All-Star break, you take a break, you reset your rotation, and then maybe he kind of emerges. I would also say if Taijuan Walker can't crack 90 miles an hour consistently, they might, hey, he's got an injury. He's got some shoulder fatigue. And this could be ending. I mean, it could go down an ugly road here. I mean, Walker could complain. He's a veteran player making $18 million. I mean, this might not go well. I don't know that Walker's a bad guy. I haven't heard anything to that. But he was not happy not being used in the playoffs last year. And he's not pitching well. But I think this is more the Phillies saying, we're paying him a lot. It's June. We have a 6.5 game lead. If this guy can get us 5 innings, that's 5 innings we don't have to ask somebody else to pitch. I think that's what's more going on here. I could be wrong. I think that I'm right, and I only say that because we'll have some audio coming up from Jim Bowden, and you can check it out on our website, 973ESPN.com. We'll have that coming up for you in about 10 minutes from now when Mike McGarry joins us on what the Phillies are looking for at the trade deadline. Some early indications starting to emerge on what kind of calls the Phillies are making at the deadline. Is it for bullpen help? Is it for a starting pitcher, that back end of the rotation? Is it for something else? Head to our website, 973ESPN.com right now to find out. Got this text message, says, Mike, any highlights from Saturday night soccer in Chester? I had a great time. I really had fun.
Did you have more fun than you expected?
No. I mean, look, did I understand what I was watching? Not necessarily. I had no idea what was going on. My buddy was trying to explain to me here and there. But just going as a sports fan,
right?
It's a great environment. I mean, it's easy in, easy out. They have a great little, like, if you ever been to Nationals Park, has anybody ever been to Nationals Park? That outfield, they have, like, I don't know, I haven't been there in 10 years, so it could be different. But they had, like, the street closed down, and they had, like, an outdoor bar, and like music playing. But this was similar to that, where like the outdoor street leads right to the stadium. I will say it's pretty cool, and I don't know if this was because it was alumni night, but the play-by-play guy, Dave Leno, the radio voice of the Union, they had him on stage with like some alumni, and they were doing like a Q&A so that the fans could kind of listen to the Q&A with some of the guys that were there for alumni. You know, it's outdoors, so it's fun. A lot of picnic tables, food, music, all that stuff going on. They have a couple different areas. Around the corner, there was a brewery called the Laramie. It was excellent, really good spot. Apparently it opens like on game days and stuff. So they do have like a cool environment outside. The stadium's very nice. Good selection there for Happy Hour Friday fans. It's a good selection spot. So yeah, I had a good time. It was a 2-2 game. Montreal scored, I want to say 5 seconds into the game, and I'm not joking. Like that fast they scored.
You got excited at that point. Like, finally scoring. Let's go.
Wow, we got a goal 5 seconds into the game. I think the final was 2-2. I'm pretty sure the final was 2-2. It was a good game. I mean, it was I'd go back, and I'd go back plenty of times.
I believe that would be their 8th tie on the year.
8 ties, yeah. I mean, am I a lifelong fan? Probably not. Am I going to get the Apple TV MLS package? I would say no.
But if you were invited to go back again, you would.
I certainly would. If my buddy said, hey, I got an extra ticket tonight, you want to go back up? I would 1,000% go.
That's cool.
But I just don't understand the game enough to say, and I don't have enough time in my life to add something else.
MLS.
No, but I did have a good time for that guy asking. I did have a good time. We enjoyed it. My girlfriend went with us. There was like 4 of us that went, had a great time. I would go back. The stadium's really cool. They do a great job. They nestled it right under the bridge there, and they painted the bridge. So like the bridge is like blue and gold, and it says Dupe and Union.
Now, you've talked about how you don't like the City Connect for the Phillies. Do you like the color arrangement for the soccer team?
No, I said I like the blue and gold. Now, their gold is a little more gold, like true gold. The Phillies is like a yellow. Yeah, I don't like that yellowish color. But the Union gear, I like. In fact, I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't end up buying something. I said that I was going to get a Union something, and then you know what the hard part is? There's no stoppages. So like it's like, hey, I'm going to go to the store, and halftime everybody goes to the store because that's the only time. So like you're watching the game, and like I want to watch the game. Like I'm trying to watch the game. So
you're trying to have the experience of the game. Yeah,
like between the quarters for the Sixers, you go and you might miss it coming back, but like there is no stoppage to go. So I had a good time there. So thanks for asking to that guy out there. 609-403-0973. I also realized, Josh, this came up. I had no idea this. It came up on my Facebook memories page. Saturday was the 15th anniversary of the first show, the first Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I did not know that it was 15 years ago.
That's incredible.
We did the first show on 9. Now, we had been on 1450 AM for a couple of years. And because the people listening, I guess, I don't know, maybe we had pretty good ratings and support on the AM. They tried to do the sports on the FM. 15 years later, here we are. So I thank all of the people who reached out and commented. I feel really bad because Bob Wankel, who does our show all the time, I put out a tweet that listed a lot of the regular guests over the years and contributors and some alumni, and I forgot Bob Wankel. I mean, what a jerk I am. I mean, Bob is one of the rocks of this show. He's going to be on today. He does Fridays. I mean, he's a great guy. I've done stuff with him outside of here. We've called games together. How I forget Bob Wankel?
You're human.
Holy mackerel. I forgot my man Deshaun. I mean, Deshaun's one of my favorite guys. I forgot about Deshaun. Now, I'll remind you, I was typing this at the Union game.
So you have maybe
I might have had a couple of IPAs. So you were talking to my guy Kevin Kincaid.
You were a little distracted, maybe.
I was, but it hit me. I said,
Kevin Kincaid was there.
He wasn't there. I was messaging him.
Oh, okay.
But 15 years of the Sports Bash, and I remember the first day on 97.3, Charles Barkley was on the show, and Peter Gammons. You remember Peter Gammons? I mean, he was like the authority on baseball. So that was 15 years ago. So I do want to take the time to thank all the people who have been listening for the 15 years, if you're still around. If you're new or you are in and out or whatever, holy mackerel, 15 years. And I will say real quick, I grew up in the area, and I used to deliver subs when I was 17, 18, when I just got my license. And I drove around all the time, and I would listen to sports talk in my car on barely could hear it. And I always said, man, I would love the opportunity to give our area something that it really lacked, which is a sports talk station that I hope, listen, I am well aware that there are a ton of people that either A, like the show that I do, or B, don't like the show that I do. Some people agree with me, some people don't. It doesn't bother me one bit. If you like me, I thank you, and I appreciate you greatly. And if you don't like me, that's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I totally get it. People act like if they disagree me that it bothers me. Don't care one bit. I love everybody. People tweet at me. I will respond because I just don't care enough if you disagree with me. I really don't. But what I tried to set out to do was to give our area something that I felt it lacked when I was growing up. I do my best to try to get guests that you guys want to hear their opinions on, plus mix my own opinions in. And if you like my show and the way we do it, awesome. We're going to keep trying to do the best we can. And if you don't, I apologize. I always say, come have a beer with me. You'll probably like me more than you like me on the radio. If you don't agree with me on the air, man, just sit down and have a beer with me sometimes. You might say, you know what, I don't agree with anything you say, but you're not that much of a jerk. Possibly.
Possibly? Jeez.
Hey, not everybody likes everybody. Remember the Seinfeld episode? How does not everybody like Jerry? Not everybody likes everybody. But it came up 15 years. I said, number one, how am I still here 15 years? Number two, I can't believe it's been 15 years. And number three, if it's 15 more, great. And if not, I did my best.
I was going to say, it reminds me of, I was watching a documentary late last night before I went to bed, and when Dave Thomas opened the first Wendy's, he told the first customer, I hope you enjoy your meal. And the manager pulled him aside and said, you don't tell people you hope you tell them they're going to enjoy your meal. You got to infuse a little more positive there, Mike. You can't wishy-wash around it.
Well, I appreciate everybody out there. I really do.
There's a lot of people who appreciate you, Mike.
It's crazy that we're still doing this and that people keep listening, and I appreciate you. I really do. We do events and people that come out. I mean, who would have thought, hey, people are going to come out and watch me do a radio show? It's pretty overwhelming sometimes. So I appreciate all of you. But we're going to keep doing the show, and Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City will join me on the other side. We ran a little late here. Bob Wankel, Jeff Mosher, Jeff Kerr tonight from CBS Sports. More Sports Bash coming up here on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle and streaming live on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SBLive.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
2:34 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. I said it's been 15 years, the Sports Bash, June 1st. Mike McGarry has been at the Press of Atlantic City longer than I have been doing the show on the radio. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, Mike, how are you? Yeah, I started at the Press in 1990, so what does that make it, 34 years? This past March.
Yes,
Getting up there.
Yes, indeed, man. Well, congratulations to you. Yes, I came across that it's been 15 years that the show has been on the air, and it's been a lot of fun having you be a bigger part of it here in the last year or so. And one of the things we've been talking a lot about is this Phillies team, obviously. So I want to ask you about, obviously, everyone is starting to hit the breaking point with Taijuan Walker. Is it, hey, the team's so good, there's nothing to complain about? Is Walker a legitimate issue, or is this just one of those things where, listen, he makes a lot of money, they're getting 5 innings out of him in June and July, they'll eventually make the move when they find the time is right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with the later part of that statement. Look, someone's got to pitch. Right now, he is no doubt the number 5 starter. I was at the game last night. The Cardinals were hitting rockets all over the place. He lasts 5 innings. He gives up a pair of 2-run home runs. Yet he keeps the Phillies in the game somewhat. They lose in 10 innings, 5-4. So somebody's got to eat those innings. He didn't pitch in last year's postseason. I don't see him being a big part of this year. Postseason roster, being a postseason performer, but somebody has to take them out every 5th day. Somebody has to eat those innings. You're paying him $72 million over 4 years. Taijuan Walker isn't going anywhere right now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this, too. I mean, people say there's got to be another option. Well, Turnbull, I think for him, he's pitched 44 innings this year already. Last year, he only threw 50. I got to imagine the Phillies are saying, look, if we could get Walker to get us through June and July, then we can turn things back over to Spencer Turnbull. But I can't think of any other scenario. Like, they're not going to call somebody up to take those innings.
No, and Walker is a proven major league commodity. He's not pitching well right now, but he won 15 games last year. He pitched well with the Mets the 2 seasons before that. He's been healthy for the most part. He's been durable. Baseball in the regular season is a war of attrition. Somebody needs to eat those innings. As I've often said, every baseball game I've ever been to, somebody pitches, and that's going to be Taijuan Walker right now. Now, in October, do I want to see Taijuan Walker? Under no circumstances. But we didn't see him last year either. So, but somebody's got to get us to October, and he's part of that bridge.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's the thing for me, Mike, is the precedent has been set by the Phillies. They already said that he's not a playoff performer, and therefore I trust that he's not going to be, I'd be surprised if he's even on the roster this time. He was on the roster last year, which was surprising. I don't even know that he's on the playoff roster this time around.
Yeah, they're not comfortable with him pitching out of the bullpen, right? So what role would he have in the postseason if he's not starting? And I know last year he was unhappy that he didn't pitch in the playoffs. As would anybody be. You don't want a guy happy because he's not playing. But I think even if he were to take a look at the Phillies starting rotation of Nola, Wheeler, Suarez, and even where Sanchez has pitched, Walker is a definitive number 5 starter right now. And for a number 5 starter, yeah, he gets hit hard. He's frustrating. Even last night, he would strike guys out. Then he'd give up rockets and home runs. But somebody's got to get us to October, and he's part of that package.
All right, Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City. Phil's obviously cruising along. Now, there was a report over the weekend, Jim Bowden saying that he's talked to multiple GMs in the league, and they say the Phillies are calling around looking for outfield help. You were there last night. The Marsh stuff, that could add another wrinkle to this, but what do you think about how that outfield looks right now?
Yeah, I mean, if there's an area of improvement, right, it would be the outfield. And I think if there's a right-handed bat out there, a quality right-handed bat, you got to go for it. You're 41-19. This is your chance to win the World Series. The window is wide open. You have put yourself in position to do it. So you've got to make sure that your roster going into October is the best it can be. And if that means leaving no stone unturned, that's what you have to do. I mean, it hasn't been announced yet. No inside reporting or anything, but I think we can all be fairly certain that Brandon Marsh is going to go on the injured list. So there'll be a guy down, but maybe that opens up an opportunity for Whit Merrifield and Christian Pache to kind of show us what they can do, especially Merrifield, who just has not gotten on track so far this season.
Yeah, I would imagine, right, if Marsh, as you mentioned, has to miss any extended time, do you just say, Merrifield, you're playing every day to see if they can jumpstart him? I would imagine that that's the way that you handle this.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for Merrifield to get started. I mean, some people have speculated that one of the reasons he struggled is he's gone from being an everyday player to a role player, a bench player, and he hasn't handled that transition well. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is he didn't really hit well the second half of the year with the Toronto Blue Jays last year, and his struggles have continued this season. So is it a chicken or an egg type of thing? But if there's an opportunity here with Marsh probably going on the injured list, it would certainly be an opportunity for Merrifield to kind of step up and get his season on track.
Yeah, we're talking with Mike McGarry, Press of AC, PressOfAtlanticCity.com, and of course, the Phillies. Rhys Hoskins is back tonight. I can't even imagine anybody even thinking that the fans would boo him. I imagine, Mike, this is going to be an elongated standing ovation type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, Rhys Hoskins, you know, he deserves a standing ovation just for, not only for what he did on the field, but what he did off the field in Philadelphia. He really embraced the city, the whole region. His charity work off the field was amazing. During those barren years of 2017 to 2019 and 20, he really was the face of the franchise. He was the guy the Phillies sold to the public, and he stepped up and he handled those responsibilities. He was the guy that reporters like myself would go to after every game for a big picture type of thing. You know, and he hit one of the greatest home runs in Phillies postseason history. We'll be seeing that bat spike 50 years from now. So I'm sure the welcome for Rhys Hoskins tonight will be long and loud.
Yeah, long and loud is right. And you know, the impact that he made, I mean, he was on some of those bad teams. He kind of like pulled people through. He was the one homegrown guy. It's just a shame that they couldn't figure out what to do with him. But there are so many people, Mike, that says they should have kept him. He was kind of square pegged in a round hole once they brought in Harper and then Castellanos and Schwarber, and then the injuries kind of pushed him out because there was just no place else to play him.
Right. I mean, if he doesn't injure the knee, tear the ACL, and miss all of last season, you know, how does history change? Does Bryce Harper even pick first base glove, you know, if Hoskins is healthy? So, yeah, he was just, you know, an odd man out on the roster. But you're right. He was the guy when he came up in 17 and hit 18 home runs in 50 games. He was the bright light. He was the guy that, you know, the first sign that maybe things were going to turn and, you know, a foreshadowing of what the Phillies are today. But he was the first positive sign, kind of that blinking light off in the distance.
Mike, Bryce Harper just got named the NL Player of the Month. Josh told me that earlier today. Is that surprising? Like, it seems like it's a sneaky good month that he had.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, because he didn't exactly have a stretch where, you know, he dominated. But if you look at his numbers for the month, they were really outstanding. And he is in the midst of a really outstanding season, really got himself on track. So you're right in that there wasn't too many eye-opening games. It was just the overall consistency of his performance. And, you know, would you rather have that, you know, that 500-foot home run, or would you rather have the consistency that he gave the team this month? And I'd take that consistency every time of the week.
All right, Mike, we got, obviously, we're dwindling the spring sports season. Where are you heading today?
Yeah, headed to Voorhees, Egg Harbor Township versus Eastern Regional, South Jersey Group 4 final. Over the weekend, St. Augustine won their 7th South Jersey title in the last 8 baseball state tournaments. They beat Red Bank Catholic 12-2. They'll play for the state title on Thursday. Vineland softball team, they're still alive. They've got a state Group 4 semifinal tomorrow. And as we speak right now, Holy Spirit and St. Joe softball are playing for the South Jersey non-public B title. So down to 4 or 5 teams as we hit the last week of the high school season right here.
All right, check out all the coverage, pressofac.com, Press of Atlantic City writer, of course, Mike McGarry here on the Sports Bash. Phillies and Brewers tonight at Citizens Bank Park. It's the return of Rhys Hoskins, and we'll have more on that coming up. And by the way, Phillies will be heading to London after this series with the Brewers. That'll be this weekend. We'll have more coverage on that coming up on the Sports Bash. Thank you, Mike.
All right, Mike, we'll see you down the road. Thank you.
As we will see him down the road. I won't be talking to Mike the rest of the week. He'll be talking to Josh on Wednesday and the guys, Nick and Ryan, on Friday. I will be in London on Wednesday. I'm leaving on Wednesday, flying over for the Phillies and the Mets. We'll have some reports on that when we get back. Looking forward to that. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. And streaming live on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SBLive, and you can get involved in the show. Keep the text board rocking and rolling. 609 403-0973. By the way, thanks for the kind messages that people have been texting in. I got you, Jack, in Cape May Courthouse. I see your text messages to all the people out there who have been texting in. Phil, I see you there. We'll read off some more. A lot of people texting in on 15 years of the Sports Bash. Can you believe it? 15 years of the Sports Bash. We should have some fun with that. If you guys have some more messages, we'll continue to read them off. We appreciate them as you send them in. 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill, and this is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
2:52 on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City, streaming live on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SB Live. We've got a lot of text messages coming in. I appreciate the people texting in at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Jack in Cape May Courthouse says, hey, Mike and Josh, congrats on 15 years. Now, how long have you been on the show, Josh? 7, 8?
March 2016 was my first full day with you.
March 2016. So about 8.
About 8.
A little over 8.
A little 8, yeah.
So
you've been stuck with me for that long.
So 8, and the previous producer was Pete G. He was the producer for the first incarnation of the Sports Bash. I talked to Pete G recently.
How's he doing?
I actually think he moved back to New Jersey.
Wow.
He was at Sirius XM for a while, and now I think he's moving back to Jersey. So, I don't know. We go to Clearwater together. Him and his wife, and he's got a kid now, Pete. He's he's around. I talk to him every day. We're in a text chain together.
Yeah, what is it? You, him, and Todd?
Me, him, and Todd are in the text chain. Yep. I wake up in the morning, I've missed 47 text messages from those two guys. But Jackie Kate May says, congrats on 15 years. I've been listening to Close for 10 over the last 5 years faithfully. Trust me, my dad and I disagree with you a lot, usually just when hypothetical talk starts, but we also understand you got to say unpopular things to keep people interested. But I guess we tune in every day to hear you guys, so you're doing something right. I had beers with you at Yuri's in Wildwood, and you are a cool guy. Congrats. Thanks, Jack. Listen, I don't. By the way, he says you say unpopular things to people interested. No. I don't say things just to keep people. Some people do agree with me, just not you, Jack. It might be unpopular to you, but there's a lot of other people out there that do agree with what I'm saying. Phil says, Mike, congrats, 15 years anniversary gift. Traditional is crystal, modern is a watch. I'm sure Josh will surprise you. Nice crystal or modern watch. Maybe not.
Probably not.
Keep up the great work. Hopefully we'll be celebrating many Philly championships over the next 15. You know, Phil, in the 15 years on here, on 97.3, 2 championships. Actually, 1 championship. I think the Phillies World Series, we were still on the AM. That was 2008. Yep, we weren't on 97.3 quite yet. So just the Eagles. That's it. Bob Wankel's up next.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
I've had 3 GMs tell me this week that the Phillies' number one priority is outfield, and they really haven't been talking to teams about bullpen. Now, I won't be surprised if they had a bullpen arm. I won't be surprised if every contender has a bullpen arm. But they've been out there looking for an outfield help. So, I don't think they're getting the offensive production they were hoping for in center field. I don't think they're getting the offensive production they're getting overall. But that's what they've been looking for.
Former GM Jim Bowden on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM. The Phillies making calls for outfield help. They might need extra calls now with Brandon Marsh potentially down for a bit. We'll talk to Bob Wankel right now from RedOctoberPhilly.com. Check out his newsletter on the Phils as They win 2 out of 3. They got Reese Hoskins coming to town, a lot of Phil stuff, but it's always some of the things, when things are going good, you have something like this, Bob Wankel. Brandon Marsh potentially out here. It sounded like they were already calling for outfielders. They got to amp this up. Do they go in-house for the time being? What do you think happens with this latest injury?
Yeah, this is a tough injury for the Phillies. He was unavailable after the game last night, and I think the interpretation from a lot of the writers anyway was that he's probably pretty hurt. We think that there's I think anyway, I should say that there's a pretty good possibility that you may not see him until after the All-Star break. I mean, you're talking about if just put him on Trey Turner's timetable, right? Like they said last night, it's a strain. So if it is in fact a hamstring strain, that is a minor tear. That's medically what it is. They'll be conservative about bringing him back. One thing about hamstring injuries, as we've learned with Trey Turner, is that when you think you're healed, you got to give it a couple extra weeks even beyond that because of the risk of re-injury. So, look, Phillies outfielders 25th in baseball in OPS this season with Brandon Marsh, hitting well against right-handed pitching. It's not been great out there, and now you're looking at potentially a prolonged absence. So, yeah, they're going to have to address this. They're going to have to address it, I believe, in-house to start and, go from there. I think David Dahl is probably the most obvious candidate to come up. He's not on the 40-man, but I think that there's, some flexibility there. Whether they put somebody on the 60-day IL or, just make a move off the 40-man and add him. I think that there's a shot that we see him at some point. Maybe it's not right away, but in the near future.
And he's a left-handed bat who's been an all-star. I mean, he's a guy who has some major league experience. For those of you who are like, who the heck is David Dahl? They signed him in the offseason. Obviously didn't make the team out of spring training, but he's had a pretty good run down there at AAA.
Yeah, he was very impressive during spring training, so much so that even though the numbers never really made sense for him, you thought maybe they find a way to get him up here early. And then he's just continued it down at Lehigh. I mean, he's been really good. So I'm not saying he's going to be Brandon Marsh, but can he give you a functional look? Yeah, I think so. And then, listen, one of the things after last night's game, and I know people are going to love to hear this, but you watch Whit Merrifield right now, just he was, again, just so bad last night. And it's like, what do you do to get Whit Merrifield going? What do you do? And Rob's answer after the game was he probably needs more consistent at-bats. And so now is there a world where Whit Merrifield plays a little bit more out in left field? Yeah, I guess so, and I don't think anybody's going to be real enthusiastic about that.
Well, I was going to say, Bob, though, isn't that the thing? Like, hey, guess what, Whit? You haven't done much, but you are now the guy almost every day out there. I mean, he's a right-handed bat. Are you going to split time with him and Pache? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? Like, they don't really have a left-handed look for them out there in the outfield right now. It's Merrifield, it's Pache, it's Rojas, it's Castellanos. It's 4 guys that all hit from the right side and haven't been terribly productive. So
none of which have any power other than Castellanos either.
Yeah, and then you look and you say, all right, well, maybe Cody Clemens can go run around and play left field. I would say that they might entertain that, but are they overly enthusiastic about putting him in left field? Probably not. So this is a situation where when Turner went down, you thought to yourself, okay, we're going to play Merrifield at second base, slide over Stott. That'll probably be how we address this. It didn't work out that way because Edmundo Sosa went nuts, and that was a great problem to have. And that they had answers for that. With this injury, there's not a great answer for it other than you better hope you see a lot of left-handed pitching. Because if not, right now it's kind of unclear what this is going to look like.
Yeah. Bob Wankel, RedOctoberPhilly.com. More on the news in the newsletter on this whole situation. Brandon Marsh exited the game last night. Will be evaluated, but it would imagine, as you said, it's going to be because the initial diagnosis is worse than Turner's, correct?
Yeah, so with Trey Turner's, it was soreness, and we said, oh, okay. And then we found out what that was. Like last night, the Phillies were a little bit more direct. I mean, look, maybe they're not as focused on this as maybe someone like I am, but, Anthony Sanfilippo and I were both covering the game last night for Crossing Broad, and we're like looking at each other, and we're like, oh, they used the word strain. So we know that there's something here. Now, look, I'm not reporting this, to be very clear, but I am just saying if you kind of put 2 and 2 together, the likelihood is that he's going to miss an extended period of time here.
Yeah,
it would be very unlikely that they come out in the next hour here, which they will, with an update that says, he's day to day. We'll see him in London.
Did Rob Thompson indicate over the weekend that Sosa could play some outfield when Turner comes back?
It's possible. So they did experiment with this a little bit at spring training last season. It was, hey, we like what he's doing. Let's see if we can maybe make him a little bit more versatile. You were obviously dealing with Bryce Harper not being available at the start of the season. So they were looking for some different solutions there. Could Edmundo Sosa, is he athletic enough and defensively capable enough to go out and play left field a little bit? Yes, I would say so. But again, that's not an ideal solution because you're talking about a right-handed hitter. And I do think that you run the risk of overexposure with Edmundo Sosa. Like, we went through this with him last year. He got off to a really good start in April and then sort of fell off a little bit. He was outstanding in May. I mean, of any player with 80 plate appearances or more during the month of May, Major League Baseball, he had the highest slugging percentage. I mean, never in a million years could you expect that. But that doesn't mean that he's going to do it again in June. So I think you have to be careful there.
In that bite that we played before you came on, Bob, that Bowden indicated, they're not happy with their center field offensive production, which isn't crazy. But he mentioned the outfield as a whole. But do you think they were thinking about center field, about maybe doing something different there? Or has he come on enough? Where do you think that kind of stands as we hit June?
I don't think that the Phillies can be so selective to dial in on a specific position. I think that they know that the outfield is a weakness. I think they know they have to address it in some capacity. And I think that they will remain open to exploring different avenues, which means different player types. Is it somebody that's more – it's going to have to be an offensive player. There's no need to try to upgrade yourself defensively. They're good there. So – but is it somebody that is a little bit more versatile that can play center field, or are they going to have to kind of settle for a corner outfielder anchor type? And I think that when you look across the sport, there are so many mediocre teams, but what that does is it opens the door for teams to say, we're in it. We're not going to sell. So I don't know what type of market we're going to see materialize here 7 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now. It's teams like the Washington Nationals are within striking distance of a playoff spot right now. As bad as the Mets have been, they're one good week away from still being in the mix. So what is this going to look like? Is there a world where Kyle Schwarber runs around and plays a little bit more left field and opens the door for another possibility? I would say that's unlikely. I don't think the Phillies want to do that, but sometimes the situation dictates that you do something you don't necessarily plan to or want to do.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I agree with Bowden's assessment that if they have to make one move, it's going to be for an outfielder.
I didn't even think of the Schwarber. That's how much he doesn't, out of sight, out of mind, I guess, on the outfield there. I mean, I didn't even actually think of him as a possible, hey, Wednesday night, get out there and hack it up for a game or so. Bob Wankel, RedOctoberPhilly.com. The other obvious, we talk about Castellanos on the offensive side so much, and it's like, hey, look, he's struggling, but it gets magnified because he's the only guy struggling. Is Taijuan Walker the pitcher, that guy, or is this a legitimate issue? I mean, in other words, hey, he's the fifth guy. He's giving you 5 innings in June. They're okay with that. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall. He ain't pitching a playoff game. Are they just happy if he gets 5 innings in June that they don't have to ask somebody else to pitch?
I think that privately, do they expect, the key decision makers, do they expect Taijuan Walker to continue if everyone stays healthy? Do they continue to expect him to hold off Spencer Turnbull in the second half of the year? Probably not. Taijuan Walker has been very unimpressive. And it's not just, hey, look at his ERA. It's look at the contact profile, the average exit velocity, the hard hit percentage, the expected metrics. If you look at baseball and Savant, StatCast, I mean, it's all bad. He's giving up so much hard contact. It's bottom 5 percentile of all MLB pitchers. So it's not like he's running into bad luck here. He's throwing 88 to 92, often elevated, very hittable. Teams are just doing damage off of him. And I don't think that there's a world I can talk myself into Nick Castellanos catching fire for 3 weeks. and really kind of helping in the middle of that order, I think that that's possible. Taijuan Walker, I don't know what the upside is. Yes, if you go back to his start against the Marlins a couple of weeks ago, he goes 6 innings, he gives up 1 earned run. Thought he was actually hit pretty hard in that start, but he survived it. Can he give you that start occasionally? Yeah, I think that there's a world where he could give you a 6-7 inning start, 2 earned runs here and there. But I think what you saw last night is more or less what he is at this point.
Well, I'll just throw this in and get your opinion on it, Bob. He was Cy Young-esque in June last year. I mean, he was awesome in June. Did the Phillies say, look, can he just get us through June, 5 innings at a time? And then I guess try to explain to the people too, Turnbull is a guy who's pitched really well. And I think there's a fine line here. He's thrown 44 innings. Last year he threw 50. The year before that he didn't pitch at all. And the year before that he threw 56. This guy only thrown 106 innings in 2 seasons. So they're trying to probably straddle the line of his usage. At the same time, saying we're paying a guy $18 million. Can you get us 5 innings a night for 1 more month?
I think that that's exactly it. Every time you watch him pitch, you think, is that it? Is that going to be the last time we see? Are we still doing this? The reason why it's such a hot button issue is because Spencer Turnbull performed so well. If Spencer Turnbull wasn't a factor here, or he was what we all thought he was going to be, which is just a guy as a depth piece, I don't think we would all be going crazy about Taijuan Walker. We'd say he's a 5th starter. They're 41-19. This isn't that big of a deal. But when you have a guy who's performed so well, just kind of sitting there, and he contributed big time on Saturday night, but prior to that, he wasn't really a difference maker.
That's the fine line, though, Bob. How do you keep him as sharp as he was by using them the way that you're using them, and then say, hey, flip the switch in August. We want you to start every 5th day.
Yeah, I mean, you have a guy that's in the middle of an all-time heater, and you put him on ice, basically. Yeah. And do you know that he's just going to return to that form? I don't. I think that's quite a gamble. But
right, this is a guy who, by the way, was 3-17 in his last full season. It's not like this guy has Cy Young credentials.
Yeah. It's you don't have Garrett Cole sitting there, right? But at the same time, I think you really nailed it. You're paying him what you're paying him. He can get you the 5-6 innings. They probably are cognizant of the workload. And you get to July, though, and if things continue as they have here recently, at some point they're going to hand this job back to Spencer Turnbull. Taijuan Walker's not going to finish the season in the rotation with a 6.5 ERA. It won't happen.
Yeah, I think all of that is the interesting part here to me is it's obvious Walker is what he is. Get us 5 innings so we don't have to use somebody else here. We're paying the $18 million. Can you do that? I think he gets to maybe the All-Star break, maybe see if he turns things around. But I would even be surprised this time around if he's even on the postseason roster. He didn't throw 1 pitch last year, but he was on the roster.
I just don't think, barring injury, how it happens. You're going to go 4 starters deep when you get to the later rounds. Those 4 guys between Nola, Wheeler, Suarez, and Sanchez have just been phenomenal. He doesn't have the stuff that plays in the bullpen. It's not like you can turn him into a reliever and all of a sudden he's going to find an extra 3 to 4 miles an hour in velocity.
Yeah. I mean, I throw harder than Walker. At my height, I throw harder than Walker.
I saw, did you have Mike McGarry on today at 2:30?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that he saw some kids playing in the Cape this year that were throwing harder than Taijuan Walker last night. I don't want to put Mike's business out there or anything, but it was a good line. I thought I'd share it.
Yeah, he was hitting 88 last night. I mean, that's rough at that level. I mean, and by the way, though, one of the interesting, we talk about velo, the Phillies starters as a staff have the lowest velo as a staff in baseball. So it does kind of show you about their pitching. But you did a thing over at Red October Philly about just how good these 3 pitchers have been. And you could throw some shackles on any of them and possibly win a little Cy Young money.
It's interesting. So, obviously we've talked so much about Zach Wheeler. He's the pedigree. He's kind of come in as the favorite. Spencer Strider goes down, and it's Zach Wheeler's award to lose. And certainly Ranger Suarez has been so good that he's worked his way into the conversation, and he's on the short list. ESPN.com does this Cy Young predictor, and they use this mathematical formula. It's, to me, a little bit outdated. It counts a little bit for wins and losses, which is not a metric that I would really rely on. But it's certainly innings pitched, strikeouts, earned runs. And in this predictor right now, as we talk, number 1 is Ranger Suarez, clear leader. Number 2 is Aaron Nola. And number 3 is Zach Wheeler. So it's 3 Phillies at the top, and it kind of accentuates how good Nola's been. And it's interesting. Like, here's a guy that we talked about Aaron Nola after every single start for years, Mike. It would be like, well, what is he? Is he an ace? Is he a number 3? What's wrong with this guy? Should they re-sign him? I mean, every time he took the ball, a conversation would ensue. And now here he is this year. He signs a mega deal. There should be a ton of pressure on him to cash in and do it. He's performed the way that you would hope, and nobody's talking about it. So it's kind of crazy. But it just is a different way of pointing out how good this rotation's been. And while Christopher Sanchez is not in that conversation, I mean, how damn good has he been? So these 4 guys right now are just incredible.
Well, I will say in regards to Sanchez, to put in perspective, Walker, Sanchez and Turnbull, by the way, average start get 1 more out than Walker does. Now, you might say how effective are those, but they're only getting 1 more out than Walker averages like 5 1/3, and those guys are at 5 2/3. So they're more effective, no question asked.
I would argue, though, that the whole thing about Taijuan Walker is that he's supposed to go take down the 6th and the 7th, and like that's the value in him. 7 innings, 3 runs, 7 innings, 4 runs. When it's 5 innings, 4 runs, it's like, man, if you're not giving us that length, then what are you doing? And that's the problem.
Yeah. Oh, no, listen, if Walker, I said he's Jake Cave to me. If I never saw him again, I'm quite okay. I'm quite okay with never seeing Tyler. But I will say, Bob, of all the moves, this is one horrendous move by Dave Dombrowski, who's made a lot of good moves, but that one was a horrendous decision.
I mean, Mike, he was 21. The Phillies were 21-10 in his 31 starts last year, and they're 4-3 in his 7 starts this year. What's that? 25-13. He's winning almost 2/3 of his games. That's a great signing. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I think they'd like to have that one back, Mike. There's no question.
No question. Yeah, and he's 2 more years.
2 more years after this one.
Wow, unbelievable.
2 years, $36 million total with them.
Yeah. Bob Wankel, you covered Rhys Hoskins during your illustrious Crossing Broad beat writing career. I would think that the conversation of that he would even there's a potential of him getting booed is preposterous. He's gonna get, to me, somewhere near the Chase Utley treatment almost. Not quite maybe, but an elongated standing O tonight. Like, he was kind of the bridge from those awful years to what we have now.
Yeah, I don't think he actually thinks he's going to get booed. I think that he's just taking that modest route to this conversation. I don't think he wants to put the expectation out there and say, like, well, I think I'm going to get a heck of a welcome.
Right, exactly.
So I understand it, but somehow it's spawned into this, are Philly fans going to boo Rhys Hoskins tonight? Everyone loves this guy. Even if you didn't love his defense or he was streaky or what have you, I mean, he was a really important player that was a part of them turning around the fortunes of the franchise, and he's a great guy who's done a lot for the community, and he's had some big moments here. This is a no-brainer, and I don't mean this I'll be careful how I say this, but yeah, I agree. He's going to get he's not Chase Utley, but he's going to get the Chase Utley treatment tonight. It's going to be a heck of an ovation, and he deserves it.
No doubt. Listen, I was very tough on Haas. His defense was horrible at times, just downright bad. But I mean, just the guy that he was. Now you've probably been around him a lot. I mean, he just was a very well respected guy, and him being around last year. It's a shame that he never got the chance to kind of get that send off. I think that adds to what tonight will be. And as we've talked a lot, Bob, I mean, for God's sakes, they're getting 40,000 people there a night. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, their attendance has been phenomenal. The weather was good this weekend. It's going to be pretty good again this week. He didn't get that proper send-off. They did a great job at the end of last season, the postseason, putting him out there, and he got his moment. But, now to be back in uniform and actually on the field and playing again, they're going to let him have it in a good way. It's going to be a cool moment. It should be fun to watch.
Bob, I will not talk. I'll be in London. I'm going to the game.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. You're going to get to see Taijuan Walker pitch in London. So that's exciting for you.
So I hear. I don't know if I'm going to the game Saturday or Sunday yet, but when I saw Walker was they're not going to change this?
We'll see.
I mean, they got a bunch of days off here coming up. You can't bump him?
Look, man, there's a lot of pubs over there. Just go pregame, and you won't even know who's pitching. It'll be all right.
It's a 10 o'clock in the morning start, so most people will maybe be hungover and they won't see the Taijuan Walker start. But just like I was on Sunday after my Union game. Bob Wankel, I can't believe of all the people. I can't believe of all the people I forgot, which was like 2.
I want a public apology. I want a commercial and an apology thanking me for my contributions to this program.
I said at the start today, 15 years. I try to remember all the people, and the guy, I said, how of all the people that I forgot? There was only like 2 or 3 people that like I legitimately was like, wow, I can't believe I forgot that guy. That's unbelievable. But I thank you for being a major part of this show. People tell me all the time how much they just love listening to us talk Phillies. It just sounds like we're in a pub in London.
There you go. I love doing it. So hopefully we got another 15 in us too.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Although if I'm here 15 years from now, I've been a big failure.
All right. Well, I don't have anything to add to that. But
all right, man. Good to see you.
Let's see it.
Bob Wankel, RedOctoberPhilly.com. Check out the newsletter. Make sure you subscribe, and all his work over at Crossing Broad. You can check that out there on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live on the X platform at 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, we always appreciate Bob. He's been a great part of the show in terms of talking Phillies baseball. He always kind of gives it to you. And listen, one thing we talked about with the whole Walker thing that I want to stress, I am not making a case for Walker. If they sat him and said, done, I have no problem with that. I'm just giving you the perspective of what we think. And by the way, I just got an email with an update from the Phillies with some roster moves. I'll put it all together for you on the other side because there's a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4. They made 5 moves today, and it has to do with the roster. So let me put that together. I'll have that for you next here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
I think it's going to be huge. I think he's going to get an ovation that has been singled out for guys like Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins and people like that. He is one of my favorite players of all time to not only deal with, but also to be with. And I am excited for him to come back here. And I hope he gets a chance to absorb it. I remember when he threw out that first pitch last year in the postseason. Now, he was a member of the Phillies at the time. It was chills at the ballpark. And I really do think it's going to be the same thing when he comes back tonight. And I'm excited about seeing him and Jamie, his wife, who's so awesome too. It's going to be a great night.
That was Tom McCarthy on MLB Network today being asked about Rhys Hoskins' return tonight, coming back to Citizens Bank Park. Look, Rhys Hoskins is going to get a standing ovation of epic proportions. It's not even going to be, questioned. The place is going to go bonkers for him. Phillies and Brewers tonight. And of course, the Phillies have made a bunch of roster changes. So let me get those to you. By the way, my headphones, after we just talked about 15 years of the Sports Bash. I think my headphones finally gave out on me. I don't hear anything. I think they're done. I'm going to need a new headset here to kind of get through the rest of this day. I think, I can't hear anything. All right. So that being said, Phillies made a bunch of roster moves today. Let's get them out there for you. Brandon Marsh has been placed on the injured list. That's one. David Dahl has been recalled or selected from AAA. Dahl's an interesting guy. We'll talk more about him. They transferred pitcher Michael Rucker to the 60-day injured list. That's something Bob had mentioned, that they're probably going to have to move somebody to the 60-day. Michael Rucker is a guy they signed in the offseason. He's now on the 60-day injured list. Cody Clemens also placed on the injured list with back spasms. So Clemens, the possibility of using him in the outfield, that seemingly is now no good because he is on the injured list. And the last move is they have recalled Weston Wilson from Lehigh. So Marsh on the injured list, Clemens on the injury list, Dahl and Wilson both up here with the big club now. And with that, you have a couple of different, things that you can kind of peel the apple here with the way this team could look, because Dahl's a left-handed bat. Can he be the guy that plays left field against right-handed pitching? Weston Wilson's another right-handed bat. He's kind of a utility type of guy, plays infield, plays outfield. So you have a couple of things now. No Marsh and no Clemens for the next 10 days minimally. But I would imagine, as Bob Wankel mapped out, that Marsh will probably be out, I would think, until after the All-Star break.
I was just going to ask you, Mike, because we know Trey Turner, he's been out for several weeks with a hamstring issue as well. These soft tissue injuries are not quick turnarounds. So if you're looking at the Phillies, how long do you let guys like Dahl and Wilson fill the gap until you got to make a move?
I guess it depends on if the team's winning or not. If they're struggling along but the team's still winning, I think you just kind of hold on and wait. If the team starts to struggle because of their lacking production out there, here, by the way, is the lineup. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage, Rio Grande moving to Breeze with Clark's Moving and Storage. Here we go. Schwarber, Real Muto, Harper, Bohm, Stott, Castellanos, Dahl, Sosa, Rojas. That's for Wheeler. So Dahl gets the first crack at it, and that's not good news for Whit Merrifield. Dave Dahl's in left field tonight, batting 7th. Just some quick news there. He was hitting .340 at AAA. So it's not like Dahl's coming up here and has been, terrible. David Dahl, just to give you some background on him, I remember talking about him during the spring training, but David Dahl, in his time, he was an all-star in Colorado in 2019. He hit .302 with 15 homers and 61 RBI that year, had a .350 on-base percentage. It's by far the best season that he's ever really had. Last year in San Diego, played 4 games. The year before that with Texas, he hit .210. He's had some injury issues, but he is a veteran player. David Dahl, 30 years old, has been an all-star. So this is a veteran player. The Phillies are going to hope can come up here and hit against right-handed pitching and give them a little, holdover in their offense until they can get Brandon Marsh back.
And I would assume, Mike, that if you're not playing Merrifield right now, you're basically saying that Merrifield is going to be probably, the right-handed platoon for Dahl?
I would imagine this will be a strict platoon. Yes, you will see Dahl against the against the righties, and you will see Merrifield against left-handed pitching, which isn't a good sign for Merrifield.
No, because the guy has been incredibly disappointing this year, and you just have to wonder, like the question you asked last week, Mike, is part of the problem is that this guy is not playing every day, right? We talked about that last week.
Thompson said it last night. He said he's not getting consistent enough at bats. You would think, hey, here's an opportunity to get him some consistent at bats. The first chance they get, he's not in the lineup. Dave Dahl takes his spot. So that's not. I said that's not a great thing. As Matt Gelb tweeted out, Dave Dahl gets the first crack at left field. He's starting tonight. You might think, hey, you know what? Why not get Merrifield out there and see if this kind of gives him a little jolt of saying, hey, I got a little window that maybe I can take advantage of this. Well, that's not the way they went.
Yeah, this is a horrible news for Whit Merrifield. And by the way, calling up Weston Wilson doesn't make Merrifield's job any easier because Wilson is a right-handed bat who can play the corner outfield and the corner infield. So you're now bringing in another guy who could theoretically get also playing time over Merrifield.
Yeah, Weston Wilson's a guy who plays infield and outfield. He's similar to Merrifield, where he plays second, he plays left, corner outfield, all that kind. Now you're just putting another guy. Is this the precursor for moving on from Merrifield? Yeah. We'll see. The Merrifield thing is quite interesting. He got paid $8 million in the offseason to basically be that super utility guy that this team lacked, in that he could play second, he could play third, he could play left, he could play right. I mean, center, he's even done that. But he's does something offensively that a lot of these Phillies players don't do. He's a guy that gets on base, steals bases, not a power guy. He could do the small ball, little things. It just has not worked out. Now, can he get going? Doesn't look like the Phillies are willing to wait to find out or give him the opportunity to see if he can get going. Because now, who's pitching tonight for Milwaukee?
Milwaukee.
Because you got Wheeler going for the Phils tonight. It is Bryce Wilson is a right-handed pitcher, so you got a righty going tonight. And by the way, most nights of the week, more times than not, you got a right-hander pitching. So, the left-handed bat gets more of the platoon in the platoon role.
You got a right-hander the next 2 days. So, because you got Colin Rea tomorrow as well. There's no announced starter right now for Wednesday's game for the Brewers. But in theory, I guess Dahl's going to be in the lineup for the next 2 days.
That's the thing. Are they married to letting Dahl take a shot here and say, you go win the position and be the guy? I mean, he was having a tremendous AAA season.
Really quick, also, for the upcoming Mets series, Mike, they got 2 lefties on the mound in that weekend series. It's Minaya and Quintana for the Mets.
So you could potentially see Whit Merrifield in both games down there.
Or do you see Weston Wilson?
I don't know that they really care if they play Weston Wilson, like in terms of getting him starts. I think he's more of a guy that's here. Look, 2 guys got one on the injured list. That means 2 guys have to come up. So I don't think they care if Weston Wilson gets some starts. Somebody had to take, Cody Clement's spot on the roster.
Well, for what it's worth, Weston Wilson was leading AAA, the Phillies AAA team in RBI this year with 35 in 51 games.
All right. Well, listen, Wilson has shown a little bit of pop when he's been up here very few times.
He's third on the AAA team at Lehigh Valley in home runs with 8 this year.
All right. By the way, so the lineup is out. It's brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage. As we said, Dave Dahl gets the first chance to start in left field with, as the news comes down today. You just heard it here on the Sports Bash. So Marsh, who's hitting .265, 6 doubles, a triple, 6 home runs, 26 RBI, 8 stolen bases. Look, he has had a pretty solid season, Brandon Marsh. I mean, he got off to a really good start. He slumped a little bit. He's starting to come around a little bit. He's a big loss for this team. And to not have him around, if he's not going to be in the dugout every night, that's a tremendous blow to a team in which, I was reading an article today about, how the camaraderie of the Phillies inside the clubhouse is how much these guys like each other. They said it's almost like a college atmosphere in there. And you take a look at Brandon Marsh, how important he is to all that. David Dahl, by the way, 340 at AAA with a .416 on base percentage with 7 doubles, 2 triples, 12 homers, 26 RBI. Look, not a guy who has shown a lot of power. 15 is the most home runs he's hit. But if David Dahl can come up and kind of give you somewhat what Marsh was giving you in terms of production, that's great. Marsh at .265, 6 home runs. Dahl, 340 with 12 home runs. That's not going to happen. But if he could be competent offensively, that's all.
My question is, if Dahl plays well for the month of June, I mean, do you maybe look at Marsh and tell him even if he's ready to come back, you'd be like, hey, man, why don't you take a couple extra days to rest that hamstring? We don't rush him back as quickly because if Dahl's playing well, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too, is that if Dahl's just competent, then you don't have to worry about rushing him back. So there's a lot there with this Phillies series. By the way,
yeah.
And the Brewers are a good team. This is the first time.
They lead the National League Central.
They lead the Central. But, they played the Cardinals the other day who have been playing well. The Cardinals have won 8 out of 10. They've won 7 out of 10. Now they entered that series on a pretty good streak. Milwaukee's won 5 in a row, 8 out of 10. They are 13 games over 500. They lead the Central by 7 games. They're kind of run away and hiding from the Cardinals in that Central Division there. So this is going to be probably the best test in the Phillies have had for, going back to when they played the Braves earlier this year.
I was just going to say, we've already seen that the Phillies without Turner have gotten by because Sosa's playing so well. So the team has already shown us, Mike, that, as long as they have a good competent guy out there, they can wait it out a little bit, and they don't have to rush somebody back in there.
This is a landmark day that my headset just crapped out on me. I've had that headset with me for a long time. I only wear one earbud.
Yes,
so
you do.
It's hard for me. Like I can't like those. I gotta have to wear something the rest of the day.
I was gonna say we got 3 other headsets in this studio, and 2 of them are busted up like that one is. So I mean,
this one just is so frayed. It's funny. I was talking to I think McGarry, and it was kind of like going in and out. And
you thought it might have been McGarry's phone and not the headset?
I didn't know, but like I'm looking at it now, and I'm saying, I guess it just finally. That's it. Like it just ran out of gas.
Happy 15 years, Mike. Your headset died.
It's crazy. Now I've had this thing. I don't even know where I got this. It's just a one. It used to have.
Well, it used to have 2, but then
the second one's been gone for a while.
Right.
But I went to the doctor. Usually, one of the problems you have this job for this long is your hearing starts to be a problem. So I've had some problems with my right ear because of I'm constantly wearing headsets and having stuff in your ear all the time. So the doctor advised me to kind of try not to put anything. The doctor doesn't like me wearing the earbuds.
Right.
They rather me wear the headsets that sit over top your ears instead of the buds that go in your ears. I do not like the headsets over top my ears. So I went to the one earbud.
Right.
But I only wear one. I don't wear it in my right ear because the doctor said my right ear is losing hearing.
Right.
So
like my ENT doctor basically advised me years ago to try to wear headphones as little as possible. So I try not to wear them every second I'm in the studio.
It's so weird though. Like having this conversation like this.
And not having your earbud in.
And not having the earbuds in is really weird. Yeah, it's really throwing me off. Like, I'm like, wow, it's so weird that the earbuds changed the whole dynamic of the conversation.
It's like a new world for you.
Yeah, well, you know what inevitably ends up happening is because you don't have the earbuds on, you end up talking louder because like you feel like, I'm not hearing myself. I don't know.
Although in theory,
where can I get earbuds right now?
I don't know if there's any in the building. I feel like everyone has headphones.
You know where I have earbuds? Like I have backups in my knapsack, which is at home. I have like a bunch. You know what I do? Whenever I go to the airport, I always grab those cheapy ones.
Okay.
So I've been using a pair at home for my laptop at home.
So you have another pair, but they're not with you today.
No, they're not here.
So of the 3 not ideal headphones in this studio, which do you think you're going to lean?
I don't know. I only see that blue pair right there.
Well, you got those, you got these, and then you got mine over there.
Yeah,
so
those aren't going to be worn. Probably, we'll see.
These are the banged up Billy Schweims that are in my right hand.
Well, Billy Schweims wearing them. I ain't wearing them.
And then over to my right are the ones I put back together with the duct tape. Mm-hmm. And then you got
You're painting a really good picture of the equipment we have in here. Josh is not a good theater of the mind guy. He just blatantly comes out and says that everything's busted and broken.
And then you got mine.
Mine are broken because they're old.
Well, those are old over there, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I take care of my stuff. I mean, these lasted 15 years.
These are mine.
They look
mine
good.
Rest of the show?
We'll see. We'll see. All right. So there's the news today with the Phillies. A lot of roster decisions had to be made, stemming from Brandon Marsh going down. Marsh, Bob talked about it. I agree with him. I don't think we're going to see Marsh until after the All-Star break. That's the All-Star break. You got the whole month of June.
Right.
When's the All-Star game?
I think it's the 10th. Let me double check.
Yeah. So that would be the whole month of June, the beginning of July. I would imagine sometime after the All-Star break is when you would see Brandon Marsh come back. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. We've got the return of Rhys Hoskins tonight as well.
July 16th.
Wow, that's a little late.
That's longer than I thought.
I still don't think we'll see him before then.
Nah, you don't think so?
Nope. I think he will be out at least past the All-Star break. So David Dahl, come on down. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Streaming live on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SBLive.
It's this with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, 3:51 on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. What's up? I'm Mike Gill. We've got some that big Philly, I don't say big Phillies news, but Brandon Marsh put on the injured list, and David Dahl called up from the minors. Also, Cody Clements was put on the injured list. So he's going to be out as well for the next 10 days. So the Phils going to be a little short-handed, bench a little shorter. Key series against Milwaukee. Look, you say key series against Milwaukee. This is the first time they have faced someone. This will be a first-place team coming in here. It's going to be a big night at Citizens Bank Park, as we all know. Rhys Hoskins will be back for the first time as an opposing player. We asked you our question of the day. How will Rhys Hoskins be remembered? You've got a lot of people chiming in on the Facebook page, on our social media site, and at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. How will his career be remembered for Rhys Hoskins? Terry chimes in. He says, a good player whose stature will outlive his actual on-field accomplishments on the basis of a few huge moments. Nothing wrong with that, but the whole, an okay player remembered for the 2022 playoffs and not the long stretches where he was an absolute albatross. You know, I don't want to combat any of what you said there, Terry. I had my moments with Hoskins where I was disenchanted. I think Hoskins got off to a historic start with the Phillies. Remember, he hit all those home runs, like 18 home runs in like 50 games, something to that effect. He had like the most home runs in 50 games over anybody in history. And he was just not that player. But what he was streaky. Defensively, he was horrible. But I do think he meant a lot to the team. He was a popular figure with the clubhouse. He was a homegrown guy. I really, McGarry brought up a point earlier about what this team would have looked like last year if Hoskins was here the whole year. We'll never know. Steve checks in. He says, big homers and big errors at time, but I will be there tonight to see him. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably paid money to go see specifically him tonight. Russ says, what he means is a standing ovation. He'll be there tonight. Russ, yeah, I think that place is going to be packed, and I think everybody will remember the bat spike. I would imagine the Phillies will have some sort of awesome video tribute that will end with the bat spike. When we come back, it's Football at 4. Jeff Mosher's in the house as we take a look at the start of Eagles OTAs. They begin tomorrow. Mandatory. What are we looking for? Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast joins me next.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
Just hungry to bring back another Lombardi to Philly. The fans deserve it. Our team deserves it. Culture begs for it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here, which you can get on all podcasting platforms, and check out their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. And Jeff Mosher is here on the eve of the mandatory OTAs. This is really the last football thing on the calendar, Jeff, before we get to training camp. And we have plenty of storylines, including the Eagles going out today and bringing in a veteran guard. I guess puts a little bit of intrigue to that right guard position here.
You know, it's really funny, Mike, and good Monday to you. Great day, beautiful day. Wonderful day to talk about the only bad thing about the Phillies being Taijuan Walker, so that's always great. But no, Adam and I were talking in the podcast that dropped this morning about the offensive line and how you have questions, really for the first time in a long time, about center with Cam Jurgens and right guard Tyler Steen, and that, if Tyler Steen isn't going, let's say he gets hurt or just doesn't play well, where do the Eagles go here at right guard? They're not going to move Cam Jurgens back there. They brought a kid in named Darian Kennard from the Chiefs practice squad. He is a guard, but he's not a veteran. He hasn't played a whole lot in the NFL. Mekhi Becton they want to take a look at, we were told there, but again, never played guard. So it's just, we were saying this is the one position where you could see the Eagles still continuing to add a veteran before the start of the season. And then lo and behold, today they do it, which is a good reason to listen to Inside the Birds, if I may humbly say so. So, yeah, Max Scharping. Not to be confused with former Sixers swingman Matt Harpring, right? Max Scharping is a guy who's played for the Bengals and the Texans, and he started 33 games, and he's got 79 games played. This is a little bit more like what the Eagles had when they signed Steph Wisniewski. Still not the same. Steph had probably started more games, but just a reliable veteran guy who can compete. You know, I didn't mention Matt Hennessy. Because Matt also hasn't started any games at guard. He's a guard center, but most of his experience with the Falcons is center. So this is a guy who's played the position, and hey, look, he's got to make the team, but I think he's got a pretty good shot given his history, and we'll see.
Yeah, this is a guy who, as you mentioned, has playoff experience. I mean, in 2023, he started the AFC Championship game. He played 3 playoff games for the Cincinnati Bengals. So, you know, this guy has playoff starting experience. That's certainly, I don't know what that says for Tyler Steen, that, hey, we're putting some pressure on you here. Let me ask you, Jeff Mosher, do you think they want Tyler Steen to be the guy who wins that job?
Oh, of course they want. I mean, he's a homegrown guy. He's a 3rd-round pick. He's a kid that they've put a year into an investment to. They want him to be the starting right guard the same way they want Cam Jurgens now to transition successfully from guard to center and in year 3 take hold of that position. So they absolutely want Tyler Steen to take that spot. If he doesn't, and you're starting a guy like Matt Scharping, that just means you're on a 1-year patchwork guy. I mean, Matt, I don't know what the upside is with Max Scharping. He does have experience.
This seems like the year where they had Sayamala, then they went to Max Gene Gillis. No, was it Max Gene? No, Max Gene. No. It was the guy from Warmack, Chase Warmack. And then they ended up settling on Stefan Wisniewski. So they had like layers of guys' experience and different talent before they finally said, you know what, let's just go with the most veteran guy of the group.
Yeah, I think that's the situation. It's an insurance policy. It's a good one. It's obviously, and Max knows this. I mean, he's signing a contract in June, right? Anybody who signs a contract in June knows that they've got to make the 53 first and then worry about their role after that.
And the offensive line, that's going to be one of the big stories. You know, one of the things, we talked about 10 storylines, the Cam Jurgens thing is, he's new too. So you got to kind of figure out who that guy next to him is going to be. Don't you think? How important that is for his development and communication?
Yeah. I mean, I think this has been a big discussion point, at least on Inside the Birds and with you, that we really haven't talked about because we haven't had to for the last few years, and that's having a brand new center and a brand new right guard, neither of which are very proven at those positions when you for so long have had Jason Kelce next to Brandon Brooks or Jason Kelce next to Isaac Sayamalu. Last year was a little bit of a question mark with Cam Jurgens next to Jason Kelce, but now you've got 2 guys, center and right guard, on a line that for such a long time has been an elite one. And I know the PFF and other metric sites still expect the Eagles to be an elite offensive line. But to be honest with you, that is a projection, and we really have to see how well Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen can be.
Yeah, no question. I think that's going to be the training camp story, because you don't get a lot of anything in the mini camps and the OTAs with offensive line. I mean, these are like 7-on-7 type passing drills, so you're not going to see that kind of play out. But you're right. I mean, guys that you'll be keeping an eye on at training camp would be Jurgens, this right guard spot. But how about this week coming up here, Jeff Mosher? What's something that you're really interested in to find out the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th when they have these mandatories? I would imagine we're going to wait to see what happens with James Bradbury, what happens with his potential arrival or not arrival.
Yeah, we talked about that as a storyline. I think the cornerback and wide receiver groups will be interesting to see with all the veterans. Obviously, Devontae Smith, he's there. I imagine he'll be there. When he's there, then you don't get Joseph Nagata starting on the outside. And Joseph Nagata, I don't believe is a player because of his height and physicality or his body build projects to be a slot. So does Paris Campbell then move from someone who I believe was practicing as one of the outside receivers last week? I mean, he may have also seen some time in the slot too, but does he become that sort of first team slot guy with Devontae Smith back? What are they doing formationally, right? Now that they've got a little bit less depth and maybe more movable pieces. And same thing at cornerback. Again, we'll see what happens with Bradbury. But Bradbury and Slay, if they're there, or Bradbury and Quinyon Mitchell, what does that do to Isaiah Rodgers?
Yeah.
Do they start looking at him more inside in nickel? Do they start looking at Avonte Maddox more at safety, a bit like they were doing in the mini camps, because they're really thin there? I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship, I'm going to assume that Sidney Brown's not going to be practicing yet from coming back from the injury. So, how do they make up for the lack of numbers there? And you got to have 2 or 3 teams. And as we talked about in the podcast, Mike, the big thing is everything changes when the veterans show up. The pace and urgency in practice, it picks up. I mean, these are very competitive people. And I made this point in the podcast that we get used to kind of off-season storylines being less this, less that. Players don't want to do this. Players want less that. But my experience is once you get into these camps and you get the players there and you get them between the lines, the competition is still there. I mean, especially when you get into the team drills and there's a sense of urgency and a faster pace of practice. And that benefits the rookies and the newcomers as they get to learn the culture.
Well, and there's another thing too, is you have new coordinators here that that you haven't played for on both sides of the ball that 100%. Feel like they can make an impression now. Like, hey, the other guy didn't like me, or he had this opinion of me. Now I have a fresh slate. So the competition should be ratcheted up even more because you're trying to make an impression on 2 new coordinators here.
Yeah, and, if you compare that to last year, you could say, well, there were 2 new coordinators last year, but the offensive coordinator just came from within. It was still very much the same offense. Mm-hmm. This is now what we expect to be a new offense, along with the actual Vic Fangio defense, which is different than some of the I don't want to say carbon copies, but some of the copies that we've seen in the past from Jonathan Gannon to Sean Desai, right? So you really do have 2 new schemes in, and that is why these mini camps that they didn't do for the first 2 years under Nick Sirianni, these mandatory camps, are very vital, in my opinion, because people have to know what these coaches want. They have to start executing the plays in the playbook, just the base ones, to get an understanding of what these coaches want. There are a lot of new faces on this team. This is not like last year when you're coming off the Super Bowl and you made a lot of changes on defense, but you tried to keep a similar scheme and offense was the same. This to me is, you really need everybody there learning what these new position coaches and coordinators are expecting of them.
No doubt. And look, I think you mentioned it last year, the offensive coordinator, the defensive side of the ball, you really only had, you had the 2 linebackers that came in. You had the
safeties were new.
But the corners and the defensive front were pretty much all the same guys here. I want to talk about the defensive front with Jordan Davis, obviously. Last week we saw him. We're like, hey, doesn't look like the same guy. What's some of the feedback from Jordan Davis's kind of new appearance here?
Yeah, so this is another thing that we hit on in the podcast. I want to make it very clear, just from talking to a lot of people in the NFL throughout my reporting career, that there is a difference between being in shape, in shape as in weight loss and your body looks good and what you want, and being conditioned for NFL games. There is some cause and effect there. Obviously, if you're overweight or you're not in good shape, you're not going to be conditioned to play an NFL game. And that's what we saw with Jordan Davis from about mid-October on, right? He has come back. He's lost some weight. He's talked about that. The coaches, Clint Hurt today, said also the same thing. However, we have to remember, even with a better body, slimmed down, this man has never played a whole lot of snaps in his career going back to college. You can take the most physically gifted athlete in the world, and if he's only used to playing 10 to 15 snaps per game, and you ask him to play 50 to 55, he may be in great shape, but he's not conditioned to play 50 to 55 snaps because all he's ever done is played 10 to 15. So that's where, to me, it's great that Jordan Davis has slimmed down. He has put himself in position right now where he can be conditioned to play more snaps, but it's not just about being slim. It's about that conditioning that he needs to develop, because he can't just play 15 to 20 dominant snaps a game and call it a game. He's got to be conditioned to play a lot more snaps.
Yeah, that's a great point brought up by you there because, it's great if you look smaller and look like you lost weight, but if you're not doing anything with it, like if you haven't upped your usage. I'm wondering what his usage will be. What do they view him as? Because, again, I think one of the key things in this camp will be who gets those Fletcher Cox snaps. Where does that go? Is it rotated around through a bunch of guys, or do they want similar to last year where Cox got, he took like 60, 70% of those snaps. Does somebody get those? Does Carter's usage go up? Does Davis' usage go up? Does Milton Williams' usage go up?
Yeah, it has to. It has to for all three of them. Even Jordan Davis said in his press conference, Fletcher Cox isn't here to bail us out anymore. I'm paraphrasing. He said something like that. And that's what made Fletch a great elite player, was that even in the downsides of his career, or the last years of his career, when he needed to play a lot of snaps, he could play a lot of snaps and played it at a really high level. There's no question from start to finish, he was their best defensive lineman last year. You may have seen some more flashes out of Jalen Carter of just physically dominating a person in front of him, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't see it consistently the way you saw it from Fletch. And I think the same thing I said about Jordan Davis can be applied to Jalen Carter, where he also played in a deep rotation at Georgia. And last year he didn't start. He has to be prepared to absorb more snaps and be dominant from start to finish. Milton Williams, the same. It's a big test for this defensive line. Of course they're going to rotate, but there's no sure thing anymore. Now there's guys who got to prove themselves.
Let me ask you about the signings of all these wide receivers. And, I see Joe Banner spouting off about who's representing Devontae Smith. Why would they let him sign this deal? You think there'll be any regret from Smith? You think there'll be anything there? They were notorious for signing these deals during Banner's time and having guys hold out because they got them for so under market value. You think Smith is looking around like, what's going on here, or is that not going to be an issue?
No, I mean, Devontae Smith's agent's a good agent. They knew the situation. They knew they were signing before Justin Jefferson, before, I'm trying to think who else just signed recently, before a bunch of receivers who just inflated the market. So that's a choice that you have to make. I mean, your other choice is to kind of hold out and hold out and hold out. But then if the team spends money elsewhere, and then you're looking at, all right, well, then do I got to go into free agency and find a new team? I think that what Joe Banner, who always looks at it objectively and from a business standpoint, does make sense. You cost yourself money when you sign before the next guy, especially if people after you sign that you're better than, right? Now, I'm not talking about Justin Jefferson, but anybody else who might have signed in between. But the difference is, Mike, the history of the Eagles is that they're not going to wait for you to be at the end of your contract to then renegotiate, right? Look what just happened with A.J. Brown. He was in a 4 or 5 year deal, and 2 years in, after 2 record-setting years, they've already given him an extension that has made it commensurate with his, well, it was commensurate until now Justin Jefferson signed, but basically they gave him a lot more money and a huge signing bonus. They didn't wait. They didn't make him play it out until he lost all leverage or anything like that. So I'm sure Devontae Smith knew everything that was at stake and said, hey, I'll take it now and hopefully renegotiate 2 years later if I'm above market value.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you hate to see that and him being like, what was good? Like, I think one of Banner's thing was why were they rushing? Why did they, have to be the first one? Does he feel like, unless he said, just get the deal done and I don't care, let's just get this out of the way, that would be a different situation. But, his point is all these other receivers got paid a lot more than he ends up getting here, and you just don't want that to be something that lingers. That's all.
Yeah, and look, we saw that a ton in the mid-2000s.
During the Banner years.
Right. When the rule was you can extend a guy after 2 years, the Eagles would identify guys who had 2 good years, pay him a lot of money up front, and then a year, like you're just saying, a couple months later, a year later, it's like, man, my base salary is way low compared to the guys who just re-signed, and guys would get mad. Now you have to wait until at least 3 years to do it, and there's a 5th-year option. It changes the game a little bit. I think players are a little bit more understanding, but you will see every once in a while someone sign a contract and a year or two later be like, hey, what's going on here? I should be paid more. Sometimes the team adjusts and does something. Sometimes it doesn't.
What do we know or hearing about Jalen Hurts and how he's kind of adapting to Kellen Moore?
Yeah, that's a good question. By the way, Hassan Reddick, to my point there, is a perfect example of a guy who signed a 3-year deal, and already after 1 year, when it was not market, he was upset about it, and you saw what happened here. It didn't work out for him. So, again, it's case by case, and we'll see what happens with Devontae Smith down the road. As far as Jalen Hurts, I think the thing that we're going to find out more of as we go forward is Jalen has not played in an offense that has gone under center very much, if at all, going back to college. Kellen Moore's offense has featured a lot of under center along with motion and shifting, which is another thing that we haven't seen a lot since Jalen Hurts has been a pro and probably not even at Oklahoma as much. So there's some thought that he doesn't like that, and a lot of quarterbacks don't. Peyton Manning was very on the record. He hated motion, hated it. He wanted to see the way the defense was lined up and adjust to it. He didn't want people running all around and changing what the defense was going to do right before he's about to snap the ball, right? So it's not unusual for a player not to like it. But here you have a situation where this is what we've seen as being part of the backbone of the offense under Kellen Moore and something that Jalen Hurts hasn't really done. Something's got to give there, right? And we're going to have to see as it goes along how that acclimation is.
Yeah, it's he's got the one thing, I wrote about this last week. I was doing a little research about Dallas Goedert. It seems that San Diego, L.A., used their tight ends a little bit more, 90 catches their tight end group had last year. You can get Dallas Goedert from the 55 range up into like the 70 range. That would be another big weapon, because somebody brought an interesting point up to me, that tweeted in that said, at what point is Goddard just what he is? We keep saying like, he's this, he's that, he's this, but he keeps kind of falling in the same numbers. His numbers have kind of been, now injuries have been part of the problem, but is that who he is?
I mean, I think that's a fair statement. I mean, he's played for 6 years now, right? And his numbers, yards per catch at least, have been pretty consistent. And the way he's been used has been pretty consistent as a wide tight end, a guy who can block, a guy who can obviously make yards after the catch when he catches the ball. I think that if you watch film of him and watch film of Zach Ertz, you see some differences, right? I think Zach Ertz was more of a crisp, precise route runner, whereas Dallas Goedert, to me, is more of a guy who gets open in zone and then catches the ball, turns upfield, and 5 guys bounce off of him like Tecmo Bowl. So they play the game a little bit differently there. But I don't know that, especially with 2 guys ahead of him in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, that, I mean, at his best, he caught 56 balls, in 2021, 55 last year. I'm sorry, 59 last year. Wow, he actually caught more last year because he stayed healthy. I mean, I think he's if he stays healthy and plays 17 games, I think you're looking at a guy who's going to catch 65 balls and probably get you 700 to 850, maybe. I don't think there's another level to unlock.
He was on pace for 1,000 yards the year he got hurt.
Yes, he was on pace for 1,000 yards. Although that was what? That was
2022.
Was that 2021? Oh no, 2022. Yeah. Right? Yeah, because he had 700 yards after 12 games. So. Maybe it's possible in the Kellen Moore offense, but remember, you've added Saquon Barkley to this group now, and they're expecting him to catch a decent number of passes.
That would be nice. That would be a change. Jeff Mosher, any anticipation of John Ross? Is he anything for you other than a former first-round pick who just happens to be here?
I mean, he's got a lot to prove. I really enjoyed hearing his press conference, and he's inspired by, he said retiring was a mistake. He talked about all the injuries and the mental toll that it took on him, and inspired by his son. It's a great story. He says he's faster than when he ran the 4.23 40,
right?
Which is hard to believe, especially since he's been in the league for quite, this would be year 7 or 8. So I don't know, but as we've written and talked about on the podcast, there's certainly an opportunity to make the team for a speedy wide receiver who can play that outside position as a backup. So it'll be fun to watch during the camps.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Jeff Mosher here. Mosher's been a big part of the show. We had talking about 15 years of the Sports Bash. We had a nice couple texts about you guys as well. Listener says football at 4, starting with John, and then over to the Inside the Birds guys, has taught this baseball guy so much about football. I appreciate everything about the show, but we wanted to throw a couple of texts that have been coming in for the football at 4 guys as as well. Yeah, I mean, we started football at 4. I don't know when the year was when we started football at 4, but you guys have been a part of it now, I think, for going on to the 3rd season here, right?
3rd, 4th. I mean, like for me personally, it's just great. I mean, I remember Mosher Mondays when I was with Comcast Sportsnet, and I remember Mondays at a casino with you, doing shows, and then co-hosting with you before coronavirus messed all that up. So I look at it both a great partnership as Inside the Birds and the Sports Bash and 97.3, but also individually, I've loved your show. You know, I listen all the time. I heard you say earlier that you always wanted to do a show that you felt when we were kids we grew up on, which is a sports talk show that's about guests calling in, giving it. And that's not just like hot take and screaming about the same thing for 4 hours. And that's what sets your show apart. And so I've been proud to be a part of it. And Inside the Birds has always been really proud to be a part of it because we have the similar mindset of let's be educational, let's be informative, let's not lose our minds. Let's put it all in good perspective. So it's been a great experience.
You know, it's funny when John and I came up with the idea. John was really the guy. He said, "Hey, you know, what if we talked football every day?" I said, "The whole year? Yeah, there'll be plenty of stuff to talk about." And he wasn't wrong, man. I mean, there might be a couple days in there where we're stretching it, but football at 4 has not missed a day in however many years. And that's a big tribute to you guys. So I know we have a ton of cross listeners who listen to Football at 4 and the podcast. And don't forget, you can check out the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms to get more football conversation. And of course, the Football at 4 segments, they are all on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. So if you miss Football at 4, you can get them there. And of course, right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Moshe. Well, I am going to London, so I will not talk to you Wednesday. I will be at the Phillies Mets, and I will talk to you. Actually, I will not be back next Monday either, so it'll be a while before I see you again, my friend.
Enjoy your trip. I hear Taijuan Walker is starting the first game of that series, right?
No, the second game. The second game.
Second game. Okay. Yeah. Well, enjoy.
And I think we haven't decided if we're going Saturday or Sunday yet. We haven't figured that out, but most likely Sunday is the game we're going to, and that's the game he's pitching.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that you're going to be consuming some IPAs while you're over across the pond. Is that bold?
It's pretty bold of you to say so. Yes. Actually, Saturday, the reason we're not going to the Phillies game, most likely Saturday, is we're going to the Bermondsey Beer Mile. It's a mile-long craft beer spot. It literally has like 17 craft beer bars, one after the other, in this mile stretch. So... And it's only open on the weekends. It's only open Saturday, I think, actually. So,
I'm surprised. For England, you would think that only one day a week it would be off.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Man. Have a good trip.
All right, Jeff Mosher, everybody, from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Thanks to Jeff Mosher. Yeah, Mosher, we talked about 15 years of the Sports Bash. Mosher has been a part of the show in most of the incarnations. I mean, he didn't mention this, but he used to cover the Eagles for the Wilmington News Journal over there in Delaware for our Delaware listeners. And that's where we first met. And we used to do the Mosher Mondays. And then when he went to Comcast Sportsnet Philadelphia, we did the Mosher Mondays over at the Ego Bar at the Taj Mahal, the former Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, which is now the Hard Rock. We were there every Monday. You guys remember that? How many people came out to see a show at the Ego Bar at Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City when Mosher and I did that show together? And then in the off season, from the football season, we did the show out in front of the poker room at the Taj. Mosher and I did the show outside the poker room for a while. Oh, the whole year we would be out there. And then during the football season, we moved over to the Ego Bar. So Mosher's been a friend, but most importantly, a friend. But when we found each other, he was working for the Wilmington News Journal and then Comcast Sportsnet. And then he actually co-hosted the show with me for a little while there. And then he started Inside the Birds with Adam, and it has really taken off. When John left the show to start his venture, Mosher, Adam, and Andrew stepped right in. We didn't miss one day of Football at 4. And we hope that you guys enjoy football at 4 as much as we love talking football every day. Cole in LBI says, I've been listening to the show since sometime in the summer of 2019. Even though the station covers Philly sports while I'm a New York fan, I love the local feel of the show and the rational and educational sports takes. Football at 4, starting with Johnny Mack, then on to the Inside the Birds guys, has taught this baseball guy so much about football. I appreciate everything this show delivers, even when Mike and Josh and I disagree on topics. Thank you, Cole. Yeah, he's a great text message guy. He texts in all the time with good stuff to further the conversation. We'll keep it going here. Coming up next with a new segment on the show. This is a newer Sports Bash feature. It's called Nick Nuggets with Nick Earnshaw. That's next. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, and streaming live on the X platform at 97.3 ESPN. Use the hashtag SBLive.
We have the perfect traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, 433. I'm Mike Gill. So, my headsets broke today. I had to go get new headsets. It's been a mess of a day, Nick Earnshaw, trying to get the right sound in my ear. I went to my car. I found this pair. My other pair, it's a mess. But we got Nick's Nuggets here for you on the Sports Bash. They're brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So my longtime headsets right here, they broke. All right, they're done. They have no sound anymore. They're out. So I retired those today. 15 years of the show. They gave out on the anniversary of the show. How about that, Nick Earnshaw? They gave out on the 15-year anniversary of the show. I went to my car, and I found this little ditty. The cord's not long enough, so it can't reach my ear. I happen to have these in my car. These little guys, these little tiny guys here, they're nice. They have a decent sound in them, but they make me look ridiculous on the video.
Oh, man. Well, listen, first I got to congratulate you on a fantastic 15 years. That is no easy feat. It's been a fantastic show. I'm so glad I've been a part of it, at least over the past year and a half. It's been really cool to be a part of 97.3. So just congrats to you first and foremost. So I guess you got to start another 15 with a new headset, Mike. I mean, that's how you got to start it.
It's apropos, right?
You're a new era, right? I got to get you like some Beats or something like that.
No. No, man, I can't wear the over the ears. That's the problem. This was the best headset I ever had. It's just one little bud. It was perfect. And it was working at the start of the show today, and midway through the interview with McGarry, it went out on me.
I see. I noticed like you were wearing them backwards. You don't want to wear them on top of your head. You don't want to mess up the hair.
I don't care about wearing them on my top of my head. It just,
All right, so the next 15, we're going to get you a new set of headphones.
I feel like the guy from Something About Mary. Where's my wiener? You see my baseball? I look ridiculous with this headset on.
I don't think you look great. I think, it brings you out a little more. It's like, oh, this guy works in radio. He's got a headset on. What does SVP have? Scott Van Pelt. That's his logo, isn't it? He's got the headset over the head.
Gotcha, right.
That's what we need for you. Someone's got to make like a graphic of you with the headset now.
Right. It'll be a one-day thing because tomorrow I have new ones.
It's going to be immediate. You're going to go home and replace them.
I do. Well, I have
congratulations.
I have backups at home. I just, I use them for stuff I do at home, but I'll have them for tomorrow.
Yep. So you're going to have to replace the home ones now. They're coming up to the big leagues, essentially, is what's going to happen.
Right. No. I have all these backup pairs when you go to the airport. You grab the thing. So I have a ton of them, just waiting to be used. At home, I use them a lot, because if I'm doing work at home, and I don't if we're watching TV or something, I put an earbud in so that my girlfriend doesn't hear the sound.
Yeah, okay, I got you. I got the Beats at home, and I got a set I bring everywhere to the station, et cetera, that I bring all over the place, like a professional headset.
Yeah, these are nice,
That's
though.
where I'm at with those.
These are nice. The doctor doesn't like me having – my right ear is bad, so he doesn't like me having stuff on my right ear.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're going to get you a new headset for the next 15 years because that's no easy feat for sure. All right, Mike. We'll start with nugget number one. Hoskins is home. And, the question of the day was, how will he be remembered? And I think he'll be remembered pretty fondly because he had those big moments, right? Like, he was a streaky player throughout his career, but when he got hot, he was really hot and could hit for power. Defensively, obviously, was a struggle for him at first base, whether it was in the outfield as well. I remember he played a little bit of time in left field too. But I think overall he'll be remembered fondly. He had the bat spike moment is now an iconic piece of Phillies history. I think he gets a long ovation tonight. Remember, they have ovation rules now, so we can't have anyone getting an automatic strike or an automatic ball tonight. I hope they put in. I didn't see anything if they put in for that, if the Phillies did it or the Brewers, because you have to let Major League Baseball know if you're expecting an ovation, that has to be thought of beforehand, and they have to prepare for it, so an automatic ball or strike because of the pitch clock. But I think it'll be a long ovation, Utley Rollins-esque tonight, Mike.
Yeah, I definitely think, I said earlier today, a Utley-esque, maybe not quite as long, but you're going to get the elongated standing ovation. I wasn't the biggest Hoskins guy, I will admit, but I do appreciate what he meant to the organization, the impact that he did have. He got off to that great start. He hit like 18 home runs and about 50-some. It was like the most in the history of baseball. So he got off to that unbelievable start. And he was so streaky. I mean, I hated him hitting in the 2-hole. The one year he played left field, he was terrible there. He was awful at first base. But I do appreciate all of what he meant to the team. And I say many times, I would have loved to see what he would have brought to the lineup last year. I was hoping... We'll never know where they would have hit him. Would he have stayed in that 2-hole? Would they have finally moved him more to the middle of the lineup to give Harper some right-handed protection as the 4-hole hitter? I was always hoping that he would have hit in the 4-hole behind Harper as opposed to the 2-hole in front of Harper. We'll never know.
Yeah, I think he definitely probably would have moved down in the lineup because you add Trey Turner to the mix. You didn't get to play with Trey Turner, right? Like, he wasn't the first baseman when Trey Turner got here. So I don't think he would have been in that 2-hole. Turner would have been there, and I think he would have been moved down for sure. I think that would have been a slam dunk for Rob Thompson. We could have seen it in the World Series. I think he would have been activated for the World Series. That sign, all the signs pointed like he would have been activated for the World Series. It stinks that we didn't get to see him at least one more time in the regular season last year, or in the postseason as well. But yeah, I think, especially as a guy who's a homegrown player, being developed during a time where the Phillies just were not that good, he brought a little bit of excitement to the fan base as one, a guy coming up through the system, hitting some big home runs for them. And just the bat spike is going to be entrenched in Phillies history. I'm sure they're going to be showing that in a big way for tonight.
I imagine that they'll have a video for him, and the video will end with him with the bat spike.
No doubt about it.
It either ends or opens with the bat spike. But I think they'll do everything. If I'm doing the video, okay?
Yeah.
If I'm producing that video, I'm showing the home runs that he hit when he started his career, bang, 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 and like have everybody kind of, and then, some of him like on the top of the steps showing his support and whatever. And then it ends with the bat spike.
No doubt about it. And you know what's, I think, elevated his aura and his presence in Phillies history as well? Even with the Brewers, the hate for the Mets. The whole debacle in the beginning of the season where he's getting into it with the Mets. We had issues with the Mets before, but when he did it with the Brewers again this year, it just brought a smile to everyone's face. I'm sure that's going to be included in the video. You have to, because he was a fiery guy as well. He was definitely a gigantic part of that clubhouse that they may be missing.
Yeah, and you know what else is? That was early in the season when like the Phillies kind of got off to like a little bit of like a rough like 500 start, and people were
Atlanta. They weren't great against Atlanta to start the season,
and people were like, and Hoskins just giving it to the Mets. So
it was like in the beginning of the year, it's like, oh, here we go again. They're going to start off slow, the Phillies, but then you had Hoskins. He just went at the Mets. The whole thing with Jeff McNeil, the slide, it was Utley-esque. So it's a nice comparison to compare the ovation maybe to Utley, because they're both kind of hated by Mets fans and Mets players alike. So there's a lot of similarity there when it comes to the New York hate for a Philadelphia Phillies player. So pretty funny stuff. And, you have the London series coming up, too. We did the whole thing on Chase Utley last week, so it's great. I think Hoskins has a huge ovation. He'll be remembered fondly.
By the way, I did a little research, and I think Daniel Murphy has kind of been the Met ambassador for the London
guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't heard a word. It hasn't been going well. Utley, I think, has been doing the majority of the work as the ambassador to baseball in England. So, all right, we'll move along. Nugget number 2, quickly here. So the Jim Bowden report, and Mike, I know you put an article up on 97.3 ESPN about this. He was on MLB Network Radio discussing kind of the Phillies' plans for the trade deadline. And I thought this was an interesting nugget that he had, that the Phillies haven't inquired about any relievers yet, and that their priority is an outfielder. Now, with Brandon Marsh going down, this now makes more sense, but it was prior to the Marsh injury. So what do you make of Bowden coming out and saying from 3 GMs that they haven't inquired about any relievers and the priority is the outfield right now heading into the deadline?
Well, that's a big one because he said in the bite was that they're not happy with their center field production and just their outfield production in general, and that all their calls have been centered towards outfielders, not bullpen arms. So I think it tells you exactly that. They know that Castellanos is struggling. They know that the Merrifield thing hasn't been what they wanted it to be, and that Rojas, people were saying, if he can hit 240. Well, he's not hitting 240. He's hitting about 230. I think all of it says we got to find another bat. The Marsh injury here is interesting because Clemens also went down. So now they brought 2 new bats in here. David Dahl, by the way, is getting the start tonight, not Whit Merrifield. So I think the Phillies are going to kind of let this play out. But what I think is going to happen is if they can hold off the Braves and keep this gap, they will do so. But if that gap starts to shrink a little bit, that's when I think they get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, I think so too. And, when you have a guy like Dombrowski in the front office, has been there before, been to multiple championships, I think he'll be patient. Now, I'm curious. When Brandon Marsh gets back, because he's only on the 10-day IL as of right now, so he's not going to miss a ton of time. When Marsh gets back,
we don't know about that though. I don't know if I agree with that.
You don't think it's going to? You think it's going to be a while?
I don't think we will see Marsh until after the All-Star break.
Okay, so like a month. It's like a month and a half.
Trey Turner hasn't played yet, and how long?
That's true.
And when Turner went down, they didn't even say a strain. It was more soreness. They went right out and said this is a strain. So I think you're saying 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, so 4 to 6 weeks, you get Brandon Marsh back, right? What do you do? Would you move him to center field because you haven't gotten the production you love out of Rojas? Would you move Marsh back to center field and get an extremely productive, a big bat in left field? So if you go out and get a big left fielder or a right fielder, maybe you do some maneuvering. You move Castellanos to left. I'm curious to see how they approach this and how much of an impact bat they get. If he's a starter or a guy they just want coming off the bench.
By the way, real quick, Brandon Marsh and Rob Thompson both described the hamstring as very mild, no timetable, but he's not going to travel to London, neither will Cody Clemens, but Trey Turner will to continue baseball activity. But he says he thinks it could be a quick turnaround. I don't know about that, man. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hamstrings can linger. That's the problem because that could be an injury that could just
ask your boy Klemic.
We'll ask Dave Klemic. He'll give you a whole rundown on the history of a hamstring.
That guy's hamstring still hurts.
I know. I think he said he ran the 40 a couple weeks ago and he pulled it again. So I mean, Clement M, man, he is something else.
Yes, he texted me the other day. I didn't get back to him, but I did get his text message.
Yeah, how about that's hysterical. But listen, I think I'm curious to see how much of an impact bat they would go out and get, right? Like, do they want another Whit Merrifield type, a guy that can come off the bench? Or do they want a guy they could plug in the middle of that line?
I'm just surprised that Merrifield, I know they're throwing a right-handed pitcher tonight, so they're giving Dahl the opportunity. Yeah. Now, Dahl's been great at AAA. He's hitting like 340, but still with 12 home runs, so he's had some power. He's been an all-star, by the way. He made the all-star game in 2019, so he does have some major league track record. I'm just surprised if I'm the Phillies. I say, I paid $8 million for this guy. Can I get him going? Can I do something to try to get him going? Hey, you're going to go play left field, 75% of the time now with Brand. That's how I would have possibly done it, but hey, we'll see. Maybe David Dahl shows that, hey, you got another bat that you can, because they need a bat. They need an offensive, they need another bat.
Yeah, and Dahl down in AAA's been majority of the time he's been the DH for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. So as the DH, he's a guy that's been hitting a lot, getting a lot of at bats. Hasn't played a ton in the field. So he's played, I think, 11 games in left and only a couple in right. So we'll see.
Well, we talked about it earlier. We talked about it earlier too with Bob Wankel. Don't discount possibly Schwarber playing some left field.
Yeah.
He might have to hack it up out there a little bit.
Yeah, so this is the concern for the Phillies, right? They've been so fantastic, best record in baseball. It's if they could stay healthy, that's how when they're going to be tested. If they're getting hurt, you got guys going in and out of the lineup. Turner down, now Marsh. You got to see how they maneuver the lineup, and we'll see what Rob Thompson does. But Dahl gets to start in left field tonight, so we'll see where that goes. All right, final nugget number 3. Keith Pompey with another big story over the weekend, reporting on some of the guys the Sixers want to re-sign and are interested in bringing back. 3 of them were Kelly Oubre, Kyle Lowry, and Nico Batum. All pretty much make sense. Lowry, I'm a little skeptical on it because of the age. He gave him some energy and some veteran leadership in the playoffs last year, but are they the right 3 to bring back? Buddy Hield, another name they traded for. Could they bring him back? He wasn't really mentioned in the article, according to the Enquirer's Keith Pompey.
Yeah, Pompey was on our show last week and brought up, some of the names that he thinks they could bring back here. And yeah, no Hield in that article. Lowry, he said Nico Batum, there's been a lot of swell about possibly Batum coming back here. And Kelly Oubre was the 3rd guy. So yeah, those 3 guys there. We'll see. I think this all falls into place after they either A, land Paul George or don't land Paul George. And then if they can pivot to make a trade for somebody else. And if they can't, then you got to start saying, hey, do we want to kind of get some of the core guys to come back here and have some continuity? So I think this is like a very layered situation on how they work this offseason. Can we get the first, I don't think they want to make a trade and lose the assets if they don't have to. That's why I think Keith was saying that Paul George would be their top target so that they don't have to make the trade to get a Jimmy Butler, because he did report on and told us on our show that the Sixers would be willing to make the trade for Butler and extend him if they made the trade.
Right, and with all the reports coming out of the Sixers, it's like they have the file cabinet up, right? They have plan A over here in this file, plan B. It's all very detailed for the Sixers, it seems like. If this doesn't work, we'll do this. If this works out, we'll do this. That's the way it kind of feels like they're heading into the post, or into the offseason, and free agency. But yeah, I was very surprised not to see Buddy Hield or Campaign's number in there as well. So that was curious. And then Oubre, he's going to command a little bit more money than most of these guys, so they're going to have to pay him more than the minimum that he made last year. I'm curious not to see Campaign, though. I would think they would want to try and bring him back. Maybe they can get him on a minimum. We'll see, because he brought some energy and made a lot of threes for them, too, in the postseason.
Yeah, I like Campaign. It'll be interesting. I was just thinking as you said that, is like, you're right. I haven't heard Campaign, but maybe if something happens with Lowry and they can't bring him back, maybe they shift to Campaign, because I do think Payne did a good job especially when there were some guys out with injuries and he came in. But you're right, in those playoffs, he was a guy that was unafraid in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you need those type of guys on your roster. I mean, he played when he was with the Suns, too. He has that postseason experience, so he's been there, done that before. So, I'm curious to see how they maneuver this whole thing, that those are the 3 guys. Lowry, with his age, it scares me a little bit, but it is what it is. Sixers, that's going to be coming up soon this month with free agency. So 3rd and final nugget for you, Mike. That's Nick's Nuggets for today.
All right. Another edition of Nick's Nuggets in the books here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live on the X platform at 97.3 ESPN. Use the hashtag SB Live. Earnshaw's back again tomorrow with more Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Nick.
All right, Mike. Have a good one, man.
All right, Nick Earnshaw, everybody. Been a new addition to the 15 years. Loved having Nick on for the Nuggets. Always well thought out stuff. And of course, you can get in on his question of the day, which a lot of people have been texting in at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We ask you, how will you remember the career of Chase Utley? He's returning tonight. He said he actually thinks he might cry at some point tonight. The tears might be coming, but how will his career with the Phillies be remembered? Let us know. 609 403-0973. You're listening to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
5 o'clock on the Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. It's Mike Gill with you to the top of the hour tonight. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, this hour on the show. The big three still to come. We've got Phillies tonight. The lineup is scrolling at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SBLive to see Jeff Kerr, NFL extraordinaire, over at CBS Sports as he joins us now. A little preview look at the OTAs and everything that's happening around the NFL. Jeff, busy day in the NFL. A lot of wide receivers getting that money, but not Devontae Smith. Joe Banner going off on Twitter saying, man, bad representation for Devontae Smith, but Justin Jefferson, he gets the bag. What's happening with these receivers, man, as we get ready for a week of OTAs?
Give Howie Roseman credit and give A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith credit for agreeing to get deals done. And look, I'm sure Devonta Smith is probably like you and me, Mike. You get offered $25 million a year. I don't think it matters if it's $25 or $35 million. I'm pretty sure we're taking it, right?
I'm in. Who's making me that offer? Give it to me now.
Yeah, give it to me. 97.3 ESPN, you want to give it to me? I'll come over.
I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but I digress. Here we go. But I mean, obviously the Eagles, it's another feather in Howie Roseman's cap to go out and identify these guys ahead of time. You just hope, like, you know, Joe Banner, when he was in charge, he would identify these guys early, and then they end up holding out because they got them at much undervalued deals. You hope that doesn't happen with these two guys, but obviously Justin Jefferson got paid today.
Yeah, he did. And look, I think a lot of receivers were waiting for this deal to go, right? It was always CeeDee Lamb's waiting, Jamar Chase is waiting, because they wanted to see what the barometer was. And the barometer was always going to be Justin Jefferson. It's what will Justin Jefferson make? And now that he's the highest paid non-quarterback ever. He's making $35 million per season, over $100 million guaranteed. What was the official amount, Mike? Was it 110?
110 guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean that's insane. So there's your barometer now. Now, I mean, look, Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb are good players. They should not make more than Justin Jefferson, but at least they have something they can start with. I mean, A.J. Brown making $33 million a year was all well and good, $84 million guaranteed, but Justin Jefferson was always going to eclipse that.
It's a wild situation, too, considering the quarterback situation there. You know, you obviously you wonder what J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold are going to be throwing to $110 million, even bigger than that. He got $110 million guaranteed. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. What's this mean in your mind for CeeDee Lamb in that situation in Dallas?
I tweeted about that today. I'm like, what are the Cowboys doing here? You know, they're basically going to make Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in football if they decide to pay him, and CeeDee Lamb the highest paid wide receiver in football. And I just don't think that's good business. Like, you should have tried to sign CeeDee Lamb earlier. You should have tried to sign Dak Prescott earlier. And look, I'm happy for Dak Prescott. The guy's going to get his bag, whether it's from the Cowboys or whoever. But hey, you're him and CeeDee Lamb. You're probably just laughing right now that someone's going to pay them. And by the way, they also have to pay Micah Parsons. And I didn't want to explain this to people on Twitter, but there is no – Micah Parsons is the Justin Jefferson, right? It's he setting the market. So you got nothing to compare it to. Dak Prescott, you had something to compare to. He should not be making as much as Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. He shouldn't be making as much as Patrick Mahomes. But he's going to make more because that's just what the market dictates. Yeah. And the Cowboys are – in cap hell because of this.
Hey, listen, we say this all the time. Dallas drafts well. They manage their roster very poorly. They do a good job in finding talent out of the draft. They do a terrible job of figuring out when to sign them, who to, I think that's one of the things that the Eagles do very well is identifying guys early. Jordan Mailata, like they took a real shot with signing Mailata to that deal. Like you didn't know that he was going to be this level player. It looked like it. but they identify him early. They get that stuff done. The Cowboys, that's their problem is they just put themselves in terrible situations because they're poorly run on that side of the front office.
Yeah, if I was the Cowboys after the year CeeDee Lamb had, you'd be like, okay, I know this guy's a player. Let's try to get him signed for $30 million a year now because that deal's going to look great come next offseason, right?
Yeah.
But they decided not to do that. And now CeeDee Lamb could make $35 million a year because CeeDee Lamb could go to him and say, oh, hold on a second. I had better numbers than Justin Jefferson last year. You guys can't win without me. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, let's take a look at some of the questions inside you have over at CBSSports.com. It's a good piece by Jeff Kerr. You can check it out at CBSSports.com. Let's stay with this Cowboys team since we're there. The CeeDee Lamb thing, we'll see what happens there. But what's going to happen with Dak Prescott? Are we seeing the beginning of the end of this possibly being Prescott's last year there? They did make the trade for Trey Lance last year.
They keep saying they're all in on Dak, and Jerry Jones keeps saying he wants to pay him. So I guess Jerry Jones wants to pay Dak Prescott $60 million a year, and it's going to be the opposite of what Dak Prescott has had before. Meaning he's going to get paid a lot of money, but he's not going to have the talent around him, which I think is a terrible way to run the franchise personally. I mean, even though Dak Prescott could do it, it's the guy has had talent and couldn't get past the divisional round. Now you're going to give him less talent and give him more of a reason to fail in the postseason. I mean, think about this, Mike. If Dallas loses in the wild card round again, can you really justify paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year?
No, you can't. I mean, but you put yourself in a situation where it's like, if not him, then who? Are we ready to turn it over to a Trey Lance, an unproven guy?
And that's the thing. There are tons of teams that will gladly pay Dak Prescott, just like there was a team who would gladly pay Kirk Cousins. Oh, by the way, Dak's only 31. It's not like he's old.
No, listen, I think Dak's a very good quarterback. In fact, C.J. Stroud, I don't know if you saw this today. He had Jalen Hurts 5th. He had Dak Prescott 4th. I mean, so he's well regarded.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No. So that's what's happening with that whole situation there. They've been poorly put together monetarily, and it puts them in a tough spot. Let's go down to the Giants. Daniel Jones, are we looking at possibly his final season? Do they have enough there to make his contract worth it?
Yeah, and you know what, Mike? I wanted to do a little bit of outside the box thinking because I think this is going to be Daniel Jones' last year, but I thought it was too easy to go, is this it for Daniel Jones? How about, can the Giants give this guy enough weapons to succeed? Because it seems like this is the best wide receiver core Daniel Jones has ever had. If you add in an actual number one in Malik Neighbors. And, Wan'Dale Robinson, okay, he hasn't really shown anything yet. But Jalen Hyatt showed some flashes. Darius Slayton's a solid player. You signed Allen Robinson for depth. Look, I kind of like what they have done this offseason. But the problem is the quarterback. You're paying the quarterback a lot of money to basically only throw 15 touchdown passes a year. You got to remember that. Daniel Jones' best season, Jalen Hurts ran for more touchdowns than Daniel Jones threw. Mm-hmm. So I look at it as, can this guy give you a 95 passer rating and 20 touchdowns so he can at least employ himself to other teams? Because if he can't, he's going to be a backup the rest of his career.
Right. Yeah, I find that Giant situation to be interesting here to see if because Daniel Jones, I mean, listen, blank canvas for him. He really hasn't been given the weapons. So can he perform if given the weapons? I think we haven't been able to, and their offensive line's been a disaster there.
Yeah. I always tell people this, as much as I like to get on Daniel Jones, I like to get on the Giants more for paying Daniel Jones. I don't think Daniel Jones is the worst quarterback in the NFL. I just don't think he's good.
I would agree. Like, if you asked me, hey, if he had weapons, would he be on that next level? I don't know about that. He did get them to the playoffs with very little. I know they relied a lot on Barkley that year. But hey, we'll see as he has. What player is Neighbors going to be? What will Neighbors do for that offense is the question.
I think Neighbors is going to be a stud. I mean, I thought that was the right pick. Instead of reaching for a quarterback, go get the best player on the board. And I know they like Joe Alt, and I think Joe Alt would have been a great pick for them. But when Malik Neighbors is there, they're like, you know what? Let's give this guy a chance, and whoever's going to be our next quarterback a chance by getting this guy in here. And you know what? Someone's life is going to be a lot easier with Malik Neighbors on that team.
Eagles OTA start tomorrow. We're going to get into some Eagles stuff. We're looking at the biggest questions for all the NFC East teams with Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, their NFL writer. The question for Washington. Here's my question. I'm going to spin it further to your question that you wrote at CBS Sports about Jalen Daniels. Can he be the C.J. Stroud of last year? A guy, you know, that's a team, that Houston team, nobody envisioned what they were going to do. Can Washington be this year's Houston?
I like what Washington did. I just think they had to make so many moves in order for it to happen. But as we saw with C.J. Stroud last year, C.J. Stroud masked a lot of issues on that Houston team, and so did DeMeco Ryans because he's a really good defensive coach, and he kind of fixed up that defense. Can Dan Quinn do the same in Washington? And based on his track record, I'd like to say yes. With the guys he signed, you know, again, I like how he brought in like guys like Dorrance Armstrong and Frankie Luvu and guys like that. I like what he's done, but the key to all this is: are they going to let Jaden Daniels be Jaden Daniels, or are they going to hone him back? And what I mean hone him back is Cliff Kingsbury and Brian Johnson going to make this guy throw, or are they going to say, you know what, just take off at your own will, and we don't care if you suffer injuries like Anthony Richardson did his rookie year. So if they let this guy loose, I think the Commanders could be a threat to win 8-9 games based on the weapons they have. I don't think their offensive line's that great, but with Jaden Daniels, I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah. Well, Hoskins, I'm looking at a picture of Reese Hoskins. I'm looking at a picture of Reese Hoskins here. The fact that, you know, C.J. Stroud was the second guy last year. Young went first. Daniels is the second guy this year. Can he be the guy that takes Washington and makes them a team that nobody saw? Houston, I don't think anybody had them winning more than 5 games last year.
I had them winning 6, and I thought I was too optimistic.
Exactly.
And they won 10. I think it was 10. They went to the divisional round of the playoffs, and they gave Baltimore, Baltimore beat them good, but they gave Baltimore a game.
They went from a team last year that no expectations to now people think they have a top 10 roster in the league. It's amazing how fast things kind of move here. So let's bring it here to the Eagles, who will have OTAs tomorrow. Let's start with the question you asked over at CBSSports.com as the biggest burning question with them. And I think you're right. I mean, is James Bradberry, is he going to show up this week?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out tomorrow, right? We'll see if James Bradberry's here. And even if James Bradberry comes, is he any good to them if he's not a starter?
Well, that's the whole, there's so many peels of the onion on this question. All right. Will he show up tomorrow? It's mandatory. If he doesn't show up, then he can get fined. Do the Eagles want him to show up?
I don't think they do.
Wow. All right.
I would like him there, but yeah, you're right. Do they want him to show up? And if they don't want him there, why don't you just release him and help James Bradberry out so he can get a job? Someone will sign him. Remember the Giants cut him in May and the Eagles pounced on it. I've been saying this all season. There's no way James Bradberry can be as bad as he was last year, especially with Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator. The problem is, do you want to start Quinyon Mitchell week 1? Or do you want to develop Quinyon Mitchell? Do you want to develop Cooper DeJean? Do you want to play Kelee Ringo? Do you want to play Isaiah Rodgers?
They have so many guys in that secondary room that they can make a case of, hey, I don't need James Bradberry here. But I wonder if Vic Fangio says, look, I run, zone. He fits my scheme. He played very well for John. I know John's system is similar to mine. I want him in my camp. I want him here. That to me is intriguing.
Yeah, and this is why I would say you keep James Bradberry. I think I would keep James Bradberry for this year, see what he does, and then you make the long-term decision on him after the season. You know what? If he starts the year and doesn't play well, then you bench him, right? Well, what's the difference? You're paying him anyway, so you got to pay a dead cap. You're still spraying it out over 2 years. It's post June 1st, so again, I would just keep him. Look, if he's on the bench, he's on the bench. And everybody goes, well, you take a roster spot away. Okay, well, let's let camp play out before we can determine that.
Right. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Some other things. The Eagles signed a right guard today who has playoff starting experience with the Cincinnati Bengals. Give me how you see that signing and what it means.
Actually, he has playoff starting experience with the Houston Texans.
Who's that? The guard that they signed today?
Yeah, remember he started against Kansas City, and remember the game where the Texans went up 24-0, and Kansas City just put up 51 on them.
Yes,
I was watching that game last week, and he was starting. I think he was starting right guard.
Max Sharping, by the way, is the player we're talking about.
Yeah, Max Sharp. I mean, look,
but he started with the Bengals. I mean, he played in the playoffs with the Bengals 2 years ago.
Yeah, he did. I just loved that he played with the Texans.
Gotcha.
So,
all right.
But yeah. But anyway, like Sharping, to me, that's a good depth move because that's basically what he was the last 2 years with the Bengals. And look, he's going to have an opportunity to make this football team. Is he going to challenge Tyler Steen? I don't know. I think Matt Hennessy has more of a fight for that, but I think they need more guard depth behind Tyler Steen and Landon Dickerson. I think that's what this move is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked about this with Mosher during Football at 4 today. It reminds me a little bit, the Eagles in 2017 had Seumalo. He was the draft pick, the third round guy, right? He ends up not, he gets hurt. They go to Max Gene Gillis, who was a first round pick. Not Max Gene Gillis. I said that earlier today. Chance Warmack.
Yeah, Chance Warmack.
And he did not perform. And then they said, you know what? We have Old Faithful Wisniewski just kind of waiting in the wings. It feels similar that they have, hey, we could try this guy first because he's the third round pick. Oh, we can go to this guy next because he was a high draft pick. And then we got Old Faithful Matt Hennessy just kind of waiting in the wings if we need him.
It's crazy, too, like with the Seumalo thing, because Seumalo ended up having a good career with the Eagles. He just wasn't ready in 2017 after having a surprising rookie season where he was kind of forced to play and forced to play all those positions. And I remember saying, I think it was at the Chiefs game, like, you know what, just get Stefan Wisniewski in there. Don't ruin this kid's confidence. Like, this kid's more for the long term, and you can figure it out later. And like you said, Seumalo got hurt, and that problem kind of went away. But you're right. Yeah, it does feel like the whole, okay, we got a guy in here that if anybody gets hurt, we can plug and play.
Let me get some thoughts. I know you were OTAs. You wrote a lot about them. Give me some observations about things you saw last week that you now are intrigued to see this week based on what you saw last week.
I think if you and I were on this show last Monday, I would have said probably Isaiah Rodgers isn't going to be on this football team. I think Isaiah Rodgers might be better than what a lot of us gave him credit for. And I think it's kudos to him for staying on an NFL routine. And now he had a good practice last week. And now you're thinking, okay, maybe this guy is in the mix here. Well, if he's in the mix, who's out? Okay, they're not getting rid of Kaylee Ringo. Josh Jones is a good special teams guy. Eli Ricks, you have to wonder where you're going to draw the line here. James Bradberry, maybe the problem's solved already. It's James Bradberry. So that's what I'm wondering how Isaiah Rodgers is going to fit into the equation here. What he does, can he play his way on the second team? Because I don't think he has much as a special teamer. And look, I'll give credit to Isaiah Rodgers here. He said he's willing to play the slot. I'm curious to see if the Eagles will play him there. Avonte Maddox, they've been playing at safety. Vic Fangio's had him there. He's had him in the slot. Feels like there's room for Avonte Maddox on this team somewhere. I'm obviously curious to see Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, a lot of secondary, but also linebackers. So I thought it was interesting. Zach Bond has been getting reps with the first team. Vic Fangio wasn't BSing on us with that.
John Ross, you wrote about him. Is this just a nice story or a legitimate possibility?
I think right now it's a legitimate possibility because there isn't anybody, right? So you got AJ, you got Devonta. I think Paris Campbell's going to be ultimately the three, the guy in the slot. But then who's it going to be? I mean, you have Johnny Wilson, but he's a rookie. You have Anaya Smith, who, again, I think he's going to make the team too. But you got to remember, Johnny Wilson's a 6th-round pick. So maybe John Ross plays his way in there. His goal is basically make sure he doesn't have to take a plane ride home. And I think that's enough motivation for him. I think maybe right now until the Eagles sign somebody, I think John Ross got a shot.
All right, that'll be interesting. He had an interesting story. I know he said that he knew the second he retired, basically, that he made the wrong decision. So you wonder why he just didn't unretire right there on the spot,
Yeah. Do you think it just didn't work out in Kansas City?
He's an interesting story. I mean, his speed is what got him drafted in the top 10, and he was just never productive, right? I mean, just never. But if you're going to be productive, you would think that Andy Reid would have figured out something for him, don't you?
Yeah, you would think, right? By the way, Mike, I gotta refresh myself here. Was he the pick right before Patrick Mahomes?
It's a good question. He was
9, yes. I can't remember if he was 7 or 9.
He was the 9th pick. John Ross was the 9th pick in the what year was that?
2017.
He was the 2017 draft. Yes.
It was funny because it was brought up that he was in Philly, and I don't think he wanted to remember that day.
John Ross was the 9th pick. Patrick Mahomes was the 10th pick. Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, Christian McCaffrey went 8. He went to a Pro Bowl. Mahomes, Pro Bowl. Latimer, a Pro Bowl. Watson, a Pro Bowl. Reddick, a Pro Bowl. The only guy who has not was John Ross, and then the next pick that wasn't was Derek Barnett.
But Derek Barnett did recover a fumble in the Super Bowl.
He did do that. So there you go. Yes, John Ross was the 8th pick. Patrick Mahomes was the very next pick at number 9. Good job out of you picking that out there, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Make sure you check out his burning questions for all the NFC East teams over at CBSSports.com. He has a lot of stuff if you want to go back and read what happened at the OTAs that happened last week. And then, of course, tomorrow, the mandatories begin. 3 days of mandatories. We'll see what happens, who shows up, who doesn't, and that will all be with Jeff Kerr. That's Jeff Kerr. You going down there tomorrow?
I will be down there. By the way, Mike, we have not had mandatory minicamp since 2019.
Yes, indeed. All right, Jeff Kerr. Well, I'm going to London, so I'm going to Phil's London this weekend. So,
are you going to cover it, or are you just going as a spectator?
If they need me to call in or do something, I'll be available. But I'm on a 6-hour lap, so I'm going as a spectator for the most part.
Yeah, where are you sitting at?
You know what? I don't know yet. Because I'm going with the Philly Sports Trips guys. So
that's awesome, though. I mean, that's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah, I can't wait. I've never been to London before, so we're kind of making it a little elongated. I'm leaving Wednesday. We're going to the game, I think, on Sunday, and then I'll be back here with a recap on Tuesday.
Yeah. So, is this your first time leaving the country?
Leaving the country? No. I've been out of the country, but never been to London.
Okay. Yeah. I always said if I was forced to leave the country and you had to pick anywhere, London would be the spot.
I've been wanting to go to London after being in Dublin and Croatia and Paris and Rome in the last couple of years. London is something that I've wanted to check out. I just enjoyed those places so much. I really enjoyed Dublin for the day. I don't know that my liver couldn't handle a week in Dublin, but I would imagine London is going to be similar.
I heard Croatia's beautiful, though.
Oh, I had a great time in Croatia. We did a cruise. It was fantastic. But all right, buddy. Well, it's good to catch up with you. I know your schedule's a little crazy right now, but it's good to catch you up before I got out of here.
Yeah, I'm doing double duty the next 2 days, Eagles and Phillies, so it should be a lot of fun.
Good game to do it, Reese Hoskins back at the ballpark tonight, and of course Jeff Kerr. You can check him out at Jeff Kerr CBS. Thanks, buddy.
Yep, sounds great. Thanks, Mike.
You make sure you check out Jeff, as always. Does a great job over at CBSSports.com. And, of course, he's always kind enough to jump on when he's available on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Reese Hoskins is in the house. He spoke to the media earlier today. What did he have to say about his return to Philadelphia? You'll hear that coming up next. Plus, today's Big Three. Don't forget, watch the show live video at 973 ESPN on Twitter. Use the hashtag SBLive. Download the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City and listen to the show on the go and right here on 97.3 ESPN.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Emotional, yeah, for sure. I'm kind of a crier. I'll probably cry at some point today, but I think it just tells you all you need to know about, the energy and emotion that I've been able to grab from this place over the last decade. It's gonna be memorable for sure. Hopefully don't have to stop the game from crying too much.
Reese Hoskins before the game tonight talking about how emotional he's going to be. Listen, he knows what's coming. He's getting the Philly treatment, and he's not getting the Boo Birds Philly treatment. He's getting the treatment of why the players love playing here treatment. He's getting that Philly treatment. Not this fugazi stuff that these asinine fans from other towns think about the Philly fans. Oh, they're the worst. No. These players love playing here. They love it. And Rhys Hoskins is about to get it tonight. And he knows it. He knows it. He's going to be, what was the Monopoly board? The Waterworks. He's going to be crying like crazy when he gets up to the bat. Right? Where's he in the lineup tonight? Is he getting up in the first inning? Where's he hit for the, he just got back into the lineup for the Brewers. He's been out for a while. And there was some concern that he might not be back for the series, but he just got activated and is back into the lineup for the Brewers tonight. Where's he hitting?
He will not be up in the first inning unless the Brewers extend the inning. He is in their lineup as the DH, by the way, just a little context for you, as the number 6 hole hitter.
Oh, so he's down in the lineup. He could come up in the second inning. And by the way, if you go to the Brewers X feed and look at their lineup, Hoskins is the guy in the picture, and his name is also the highlighted one. So they know what's going on here, too. They're not dummies.
No, they're not dummies.
They know he's getting... It's going to be, what's the over-under? 15 seconds of standing O, maybe longer?
Might be longer than that, because...
They changed their pitcher, by the way.
They did. I haven't seen exactly the reason why yet, but I'm assuming there's some sort of injury.
Yeah, I just saw the pitcher's different. Is he lefty, righty? The Phillies countering with a new lineup now?
I'm looking him up. I've never heard of Koning.
Is it Trevor Koning? What's his name? I don't know this Koning that you speak of here. I did see that the pitcher from earlier today is changed in their graphic that they put up there.
Jared Koenig is a lefty.
So do the Phillies change their lineup because of that? Did the Phillies make a change? Because David Dahl, by the way, for those of you who have just tuning in, David Dahl is in the lineup today. Now, that was with a right-handed pitcher. Dahl is a lefty. He just got called up because Brandon Marsh went on the injured list.
I have not seen a change to the Phillies lineup.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. All right, it is time for today's Big Three. All right, you got some Big Threes. I'm interested to see if you have some of the ones that made my Big Three list.
By the way, Jared Koenig has a 2.13 ERA this year, so he's actually a solid pitcher. The WHIP, as you like to know, Mike, is 1.105.
They're good. I mean, the Brewers are a good team. This is a good ball club.
All right, so Mike, I wanted to start with what I think is the biggest news of the day, which is Justin Jefferson is now the highest paid receiver in the NFL, valued up to $140 million. $110 million guaranteed. So first, Mike, I want to get your initial reaction before I give you a full breakdown of who the highest paid receivers are now that the market was reset.
Well, I mean, listen, Justin Jefferson's a stud. I'm interested to see if this is going to be a good investment with the quarterback situation there. I mean, obviously they're banking on J.J. McCarthy to be the partnership with Justin Jefferson, who's 24 years old. He gets $110 million guaranteed. He's probably if not the best, this top 3 wide receiver. Do you like Jamar Chase? Do you like Justin Jefferson? Do you like CeeDee Lamb? Do you like A.J. Brown?
That was part of the question I asked you earlier, which is if you take out the variables on the quarterbacks, and you gave them all the same level of quarterback, okay? Who do you think is the more productive guy? Is it Jefferson, Lamb, or Chase?
Jefferson's the most productive guy in history. He's got 5,899 yards. It's the most by any receiver in league history through their first 4 seasons. Now, your question is, if you're taking the quarterback out of it, the interesting part of this conversation is, a lot of people don't like Kirk Cousins, so where does that kind of factor in? He's just one of 5 receivers in NFL history to go over 5,000 yards in his first 4 seasons. So listen, I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I love Jamar Chase. I like A.J. Brown. I think CeeDee Lamb's in the conversation. Justin Jefferson. There's no wrong answer of which guy. They all do stuff a little different. I always said I think Jamar Chase is like the most, him or A.J. Brown, maybe like the most prototypical size-wise, the whole package.
Well, the reason I ask, Mike, is because CeeDee Lamb has been putting out this graphic that ESPN's Hembo confirmed these stats, okay? So Jefferson and Lamb, same draft class, right? You mentioned Jefferson's one of 5 guys.
Well, Jefferson was in the draft class with all those receivers.
Right, but CeeDee Lamb was in that class.
Correct. And it was, of course, the one that the Eagles struck out.
Right. But the point is that CeeDee Lamb also has over 5,000 receiving yards in his first 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
They both have been to 3 Pro Bowls. Jefferson has 392 catches. Lamb has 395 catches. Jefferson has 700 more receiving yards, but Lamb has 4 more receiving touchdowns. So it sounds like Lamb is trying to say, yo, man, if he's getting 110 guaranteed, I should too. He's
not wrong. All those guys, like if you're playing the game of this guy makes this, I get $1 more, then the guy who gets the contract last is probably going to win here. At some point you say, I'm done waiting, just give me my deal. Maybe people don't act like that, but all of these guys have a strong case to make as I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm the best. Listen, if you told me you're stuck with A.J. Brown, you could take Justin Jefferson, I have no problem. I think Jefferson, Brown, Chase, Lamb, there's a bunch of these guys. Here's the difference. Justin Jefferson, how many playoff games has he won? Buckets. Jamar Chase has been to a Super Bowl.
Yes, he has.
A.J. Brown has been to a Super Bowl.
Yes, he has.
How many playoff games has CeeDee Lamb won?
I think they've won 1 since he's been there.
I don't know that they have won one, but I'll take your word for it. But I don't think they've won a playoff game. When was the last time the Cowboys won a playoff game? I don't think it's been in the CeeDee Lamb. They lost to the 49ers. Did they win a wild card game they might have won a wild card game a couple of years ago. But my point being, having these guys doesn't guarantee. Watch that microphone. It's right in your face. Right in your face.
2022, they won the wild card game against the Bucs. Then they lost to the 49ers next round.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I knew they won at least one.
All right. So CeeDee Lamb has won a wild card game. Justin Jefferson, I don't think has won a game in the playoffs. I didn't make it last year. Jamar Chase went to a Super Bowl. A.J. Brown's been to a Super Bowl. My point is, having these great receivers doesn't guarantee you all that much a lot of the times. That's all. So they can have Justin Jefferson, but it doesn't guarantee that team's doing anything. He's already had some of his best seasons. He's been the best receiver in the history of the game, statistically speaking, and it hasn't done anything for that team.
Jefferson is 0-1.
Yeah, okay.
He
lost to
the Giants.
Not a good Giant team, by the way.
No. Now, here is the list, Mike. I got this from CBS Sports. The total guarantee, we're not going off of the total value, just the guaranteed money. And I want to get your reaction to each one. So now Jefferson is number 1, $110 million. But number 2 is still, though, A.J. Brown at $84 million. So should A.J. Brown stay number 2? Or do you think Lamb and Chase pass him in the total guarantee?
Well, I think they're going to pass him just because that's the way the business works. I don't think this is, hey, I'm better than A.J. Brown. It's, hey, I outweighted A.J. Brown.
Sure, but do they deserve it?
No, yes and no. As I said, everybody here is on the same. Nobody's. If you said the 2 highest pays of this group, are you going by production or team success?
I would say production.
Then Justin Jefferson deserves the most.
Number 3 on the list, by the way, Mike, at $77 million is Amon-Ra St. Brown.
You can make an argument for him. He went to the NFC Championship game.
He did. The number 4
He's won more playoff games than Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb combined.
Number 4 on the list is Jalen Waddle at $76 million.
Waddle, to me, is a step behind those guys. But he's in a great offense, and his numbers reflect that. But I don't put him in the same group of the guys you just mentioned.
Number 5 is a Super Bowl champion, Cooper Kupp at $75 million guaranteed.
And Cooper was very good before he got hurt, and last year he was not like this. He wasn't on the same level.
Number 6 is Tyreek Hill at $72.2 million guaranteed.
And Tyreek Hill has been a Super Bowl champion. He's been, he obviously was with the Chiefs at that time. So,
well, he signed the contract with the Dolphins.
I know, I'm saying, but my point is he's had success, not with the Dolphins, though. They have not won a playoff game with him.
And then, of course, the next guys on the list, it's kind of a cluster at that point. Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith.
Devontae Adams, I think he's kind of taken a step behind.
You have Devonta Smith.
He's in that next group.
You also have, after Smith on the list, DK Metcalf.
He seemed like he was better a couple of years. He's kind of fallen off a little bit.
And then and last in the group is Deebo Samuel, who's looking for a new contract.
By the way, the Phillies did change their lineup.
They did?
Nope. Sorry, I don't know why this is in my feed. This is from, why is that in my feed?
Don't ask me.
It's from like 3 days ago.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's poor.
June 2nd. Oh, no, it was yesterday. My bad. It was yesterday.
Well, they changed it yesterday.
Yes, they changed it yesterday because of Clemens. But it's like the first thing in my feed.
Are you on the, for you or the following?
For you.
Yeah, I go to following. Following is the latest.
All right, there you go. All right, what else you got?
So yeah, I just want to give you that list of guys. Just give you everyone the idea.
A lot of really good receivers right now is what the answer to a lot of this is it's whatever your slice of. I love AJ Brown. I have no problem with him being, with him. I wouldn't say, oh man, I'd much rather have now Justin Jefferson's younger. That would be the one thing.
He is younger, so there is that, but still, I think to me at least, I think you have to go off of who do you want. I always go back to in the situation. Who do you want in the moment? Who do you want a 2-minute drill? Who do you want when, push comes to shove?
I'll take any of those guys. The problem has been, Justin Jefferson. You might say he's the most productive of that group. He has won the least.
Mike, sticking with the football, we got some sad news today. Hall of Famer Larry Allen, part of the Great Wall of Dallas in the 90s. He has passed away suddenly while he was vacationing with his family in Mexico. He was 52 years old. The second round pick out of Sonoma State in 94, like we all know where that is. And he was one of the greatest offensive linemen arguing in NFL history. He is now no longer with us.
Yeah, I saw this today. It was actually kind of shocking. I said, oh, wow. I actually said to you, wow, Larry Allen died. And kind of suddenly, from what I understand, he was on vacation with his family. Yep. And I remember he was a part of those. Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, that group. He was a Pro Football Hall of Famer, I think, in 2013. Won the Super Bowl in 95. Dead. I mean, certainly was a key member of that great Cowboys run back there with Aikman. And I think he played with Romo a little bit too.
So Aikman said, and Emmitt Smith both, they put out statements where they said that basically that he wasn't just a great player on the field, but he's a better person off the field. So it gives you an idea how much of a loss this is. It wasn't just a great football player. And apparently, Aikman said that he was a gentle giant that loved his family and his friends. Smith said that he was a great player, but a super person. So definitely a loss for one of the greatest offensive linemen.
Well, put it this way.
History.
If you get drafted in the second round out of Sonoma State, you're a hell of a player, man. And the fact that he, Hall of Fame 2013 for Larry Allen, he was part of those massive offensive lines for the Cowboys that just led the way for Emmitt Smith to become the all-time leading rusher. And I think most people will tell you that Emmitt Smith wasn't the most talented running back. Definitely he wasn't the fastest guy, but that offensive line is a big reason why he is the all-time leading rusher.
Mike, I also want to hit on, so I don't know if you care or not, but the Stanley Cup Finals are set, and it's going to be the longest travel distance in NHL history. It's Edmonton versus Florida. They will be traveling from Edmonton, Canada to Sunrise, Florida, back and forth for this series.
It's a rough travel, man.
And it's going to be interesting, Mike. How do these guys handle the distance? A lot of the analysts say that while Edmonton has the two best players in the series, Florida has a deeper team, their second straight year in the Stanley Cup Finals.
There was a lot of people counting Edmonton out, and they just got hot here. Here they go. So, yeah, I mean, listen, obviously Connor McDavid, he's doing things now that people are the fact, though, that he's on Edmonton, they haven't won the Cup since the Gretzky years. I mean, all this stuff. I mean, they're kind of catching a little bit of fire here all of a sudden. So, listen. That travel thing is interesting, that the fact that they're going to go from Edmonton, Alberta, which is way up past Portland, all the way down. It's the furthest distance ever for a Stanley Cup final. But I don't know. I haven't watched much of it, but I did see the McDavid, highlights the other night. He just unbelievable.
According to ESPN's Emily Kaplan, there might be a question of which town they might have to fly into. There's a suspect that they might have to, not that they want to, but they might have to go to Fort Lauderdale.
I've flown there a few times.
Instead of Miami because of the logistics.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale. Well, there's like three of them right there. There's the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and I guess, what's the third one? There's a third one that's like...
Well, Fort Myers, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's Fort Myers. So you can go to any of the three. They're all within like a 20-minute kind of radius of each other.
Right.
But I don't know where Sunrise is kind of like 45 minutes outside of Miami.
Sunrise is like closer to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, by the way...
Well, where do they fly in during the season?
Well, she said they usually... So the reason why she brings it up is because they usually fly into Miami. Mm-hmm. But apparently because of the dates of when the games might be, they might have to do Fort Lauderdale instead. So there might be a logistical problem with the flights here.
Gotcha. Well, when's that start?
Starts later this week. We got the NBA Finals on Thursday night, and then basically it's going to be the night after, basically. It's going to be the NHL.
So that doesn't start till Friday?
Saturday. Sorry, correction. It was Saturday. I messed up with the 7th and 8th. So the first game is Saturday.
The Stanley Cup doesn't start till Saturday.
Yep.
Gee, didn't that, I mean, I guess they lock those dates in and then they don't move them.
Yeah, that's Saturday, Monday, Thursday. So it'll alternate with the NBA Finals.
All right, at least give you something there.
So, Mike, those are my three.
All right, there you go. Today's big three here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, brought to you by Manahawkin Auto Sales here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Big three brought to you by Manahawkin Auto Sales. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City, streaming live on the X platform. Use the hashtag SBLive. Final thoughts coming up next.
The Sports Bash with Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, get ready to get out of here. Wrap up the show on this Monday. Do you know they're doing 2 days of the NBA draft this year? Did you know that? It's a Wednesday, Thursday.
I knew they were doing 2 days, but the wrinkle you just told me I was not expecting.
So the NBA just announced they're going to do the draft. It's June 26th, round 1, Wednesday night. They're going to do round 2 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because it is the night of the presidential debate. So they don't want to go up against the debate, although they're willing to go up against the NFL draft.
Right, they want to go against the NFL draft, but not the debate.
They don't want to go up against the debate. So the draft will be round 2.
The NBA is not scared of the NFL, but the U.S. presidential debate, we're out.
Well, I mean, smart move by them. You get a lot of people that watch those things. Well, but that being said,
be on Thursday, June 27th, and the Sixers will be picking who in the second round?
Who knows? But the second round of the draft now will be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, this goes to what I said. Put on something live in the middle of the day, and it should do pretty well.
Does this count, though? Is this a really good idea to put in the middle of the day?
That is it. We don't know. We'll see. First time ever they're doing 2 rounds of the draft for the NBA, which, I don't think that's really necessary. The second round, nobody knows anybody in the first round, let alone the second round. The NBA draft has lost a lot of its luster. I used to be a big fan of the NBA drafting and stuff. It's just not the same. That'll do it for the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live on the X platform at 97.3 ESPN. I'm back again tomorrow. Josh has game night coming up next. And, of course, the NBA Finals, they don't start till Thursday. We'll have more on that coming up down the road. Phillies mailbag with Frank tomorrow. Adam has the football at 4. Appreciate everybody listening today, all the kind messages for 15 years of the Sports Bash. Holy moly. Back again tomorrow.